Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
You can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You can't go, how many times, OB, have we seen this team over the years, but like this year, go not just cold. It's supposed to get to 19 degrees, I think, on Sunday, something like that.
Well, so there's the question. Which is going to be higher?
The 3-point percentage?
The 3-point percentage or the temperature? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
But you can't keep shooting threes when you're not a 3-point shooting team and expecting a different result. It doesn't work that way. 19 threes, they went 9 minutes. Was it 9 minutes without scoring?
9:15 without a field goal.
Yeah, without a field goal, excuse me.
I think they got 9 free throws in that period.
It is TexAgs Radio. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. They were not going. Look, I started off with a negative. Let me give a positive, and then I'm going to take back the positive.
Okay.
They got back to doing a lot of what they like to do. Okay, defense was stronger.
Played with great effort.
Great effort, right? Good. Rebounding was better, right?
Rebounded 18 offensive rebounds, I believe.
It felt like an A&M type game for stretches of that game because, like, man, we're not scoring, but we're right there. And if Wade gets hot, if Wade does this, if Henry keeps going like this, we might win. All that I liked. It was better than LSU. 100% harder team, much better team. They had won, 7 in a row, I think it was. Now it's 8. I liked all that. Now, that to me is the price of admission to go to Disney World, right? You pay the $130 to go in. When an A&M basketball team goes out there, that's what I expect. I expect effort. I expect defense. I expect rebounding. That is what I expect, and I love that I got it again. But now I want more.
Well, here, the bottom line is basketball, and this is at the most simplest, breaking it down to the simplest level. Basketball is won by who puts the ball in the hoop the most.
Yep.
And A&M shooting issues, I mean, they even acknowledge it. They say, look, we have to rebound the offense. Their whole game offensively is predicated on getting offensive rebounds. Why? Because I guess they expect to miss. And to your point about the 3-point shooting and doing the same thing. After last night, A&M is now, out of 351 D1 teams in college basketball, is now 346th in 3-point shooting percentage. 346.
Out of how many teams?
Out of 351.
Is that good?
They're ahead of Detroit Mercy, Utah Valley, Uwe Coppin State, and Houston Christian.
Hey, okay.
So that's who they're ahead of. But A&M is not tied for 93rd in the top 100 in 3-pointers attempted.
Tied for 93rd for 3-pointers attempted. So the team that misses the most in big basketball, right? Big time basketball, they miss the most. Does that sound about fair?
Yeah. Well,
from the teams you read,
Detroit Mercy, Utah Valley.
Okay.
I can't even remember what UIPUI stands for. It's like Indiana University, per University, Indiana or something. I don't know.
Right.
And then Coppin State and Houston Christian.
Okay. So the team, big time team with Sweet 16 Elite 8 aspirations is one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, but takes
in the top 100.
Top 100 of shots.
So here's the deal. They are streaky. They're not a good three-point shooting team. That's obvious. But they can be a streaky one. You can say that just not even about three-point, the whole just offense.
Offensively streaky,
Because you saw them get streaky last night going inside to Henry Coleman.
Yep.
And I think he got, almost 3 in a row. It wasn't 3 in a row, but 3 in a row and once. And so he had 3 conventional three-point plays, and then Boots Radford hit a 3. And all of a sudden, they were down 9, and it's I can't remember exactly 14 minutes. They only have the lead. But they can't. Their shooting is so erratic that they can't sustain that.
Let me ask you this. I know college basketball is 2 halves. In basketball, if you go to a 4-quarter game and a team doesn't score for 1 quarter, okay?
Yeah.
What's the likelihood of winning that game?
Very low.
I don't know if I've ever seen – I don't think I've ever seen a team not score in a quarter that's like a real game, but – You've probably seen some high school.
I saw Texas A&M.
Oh, well, there you go.
One year, a few years ago, somebody would remember this. A&M needed 1 basket with 10 minutes to go to satisfy the over or something like that, and they went 10 minutes without scoring. It was on Scott Van Pelt's Bad Beats. They featured A&M because 10 minutes they went without scoring they needed to get the over or something like that.
So I'm going to do my Jedi thing. You know what my Jedi thing is? Where you balance the force.
Okay, balance the force.
Because, and I don't even know if I believe it, but the reality is they do get better as the season goes on. This is 2 games into SEC play. Where I struggle with it is I don't know how they're going to get that scoring. I don't know how they're going to get – because what I talked about yesterday leading into this game was they don't get transition points. They don't get easy buckets. I believe the entire first half, they didn't have 1 transition bucket. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's what they're going to do. And I think I saw them trying to do it last night. They're going to get back to what made them successful last year and the year before, and they're going to try to start attacking the basket and try to get layups and try to get fouled and get to the foul line. Now, they did better getting to the foul line in the second half. I think they were 13 or 14. I may not have the numbers exact, free throws in the second half, but it was something around. So that's what they're going to do. And they're still going to shoot threes. You have to, but maybe not in volume. Because you know what? You know what also happens if you're shooting threes? For A&M, you don't make them. But you know what else you don't get? You don't get fouled.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're more likely to get the offensive rebound from your guards because the ball comes out long, and you don't have a lot of big guys to bang around inside. But you don't get fouled.
I'm going to brag on my kids for a second, but I'm going to use this as just a comparison. My kids typically get straight A's. Okay, my boys, right?
Okay.
There's been on occasion they've gotten a 78 on a test, an 84, right?
Right.
And I expect them to fix that. I expect them to make that a higher B, an A, okay? I expect that because of history. They have proven to me when things go bad, they fix it. But then when it becomes the second test and the third test, then I step in and I'm like, dude, this ain't working. We got to get you a tutor. You got to go to SEC prep test, whatever that's called. We're changing because it ain't working. I expect for Buzz to do that because he has done it in the past. Mm-hmm. But so far, the tests, they're not passing. And I felt good going into that game. Iowa State beats Houston. I'm like, all right. Like, I wish A&M would have beat Houston, but they did beat Iowa State. Let's go. Like, that looks better. Get a win against Auburn. Things are good again. And things might get good again. They just aren't going to get, I don't think, to the good as I expected. Because I expected this team to compete for the SEC this year, as they did last year. And with 2 losses to start SEC play, you're as far back as you can be.
Well, and you got Kentucky coming to town.
Oh, gosh. That's right.
So they need to figure things out quick. But again, and just because it happened once doesn't mean it's going to happen again. But I saw an A&M team that lost 8 in a row.
Get hot.
Put it together. Buzz found out figured something out, and it worked.
I expect that to happen.
The thing is, here's what I'm kind of surprised about. That you're even in this position where you got to hope it happens again, because we looked at the team coming in. Of course, we all thought it was Marble, but let's not get carried away. Julius Marble's a good, solid player. All right? It's not like you're missing Olajuwon, right?
I like that you used him. Thank you.
We
can throw in Dirk, too.
He's a good, he'll be the best guy in that position that you have, without a doubt. But is he going to make if Marble was there, would you be making 3-pointers?
Maybe a couple more.
Maybe you're getting more rebounds inside, so you feel like you can go inside more. I don't know. You would be better with him. Now they're missing Dexter Dennis. As good a defensive player Dexter was, he could go out and hit
he could score
an outside shot, and so they're missing him. But you just and look, Boots is still working his way back into being Boots, and we saw some good things. But the fact of the matter is, if you have Boots and you have and you have Wade, if he's playing like we've seen before, you should be a better basketball team. You shouldn't necessarily be going through this. And you go back to I don't like saying it, but they haven't had a good win since November 25th.
Yeah. And while I expect for Buzz to figure it out, because, again, he has proven to me he's done it on a couple of occasions and other stops as well. What I wanted from the season was to advance the program, right? And it might be advanced. They may make a run to the Elite Eight. They get a low seed. Okay. But I wanted not only the perception of the program to be advanced as the season moved on, not just preseason advancement. I don't want it to feel like last year or the year prior. I want it to feel better.
Yeah.
Because you've got all these guys coming back. They may go and win the rest of their games in the SEC, and then we're like, dude, remember how down we were?
Right.
I mean,
last year they lost to Wofford. And we're like, man, what is going on?
They're not making the
with
tournament.
these guys?
I'm already thinking I may get to do spring break this year.
And they damn near won the SEC.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's panic time by any means. I think you see
but
what
we
Buzz
can
has
talk
done
about
before.
it.
But I always say, don't hit the panic button, but
have it in your hand.
But know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, all things can be true. I can expect change. I can be disappointed with now. And the things that we're saying, I bet you they're thinking similar things across the street.
I think so. I think you saw indications of that. Something small like Eli Lawrence playing more.
Yeah.
That tells me he was the guy that shot 36% from three-point range, I think it was, at Middle Tennessee. And, he's getting more playing time. Why? Because Buzz feel like, hey, we got to look and see if we got somebody that can put it in the hole.
You don't win many games when you shoot poorly. You go basically a quarter without scoring, and you turn the ball over at a high clip.
Yeah, I think that was the killer, along with the shoot. But we've come to expect A&M to shoot poorly. We don't expect them to have 19 turnovers.
2 years ago, they were a bad shooting team. Quentin Jackson, pulled him out of some of those. Like, he went on this hot streak that was incredible. Wade Taylor last year, in the beginning of SEC play, went on this amazing hot streak.
By attacking the basket.
Well, keep attacking the basket. Here's something that I don't think is sustainable, though. You can't keep hoping for, heroic performances to bail you out of games.
True.
Wade was heroic against U of H. It wasn't enough, but he was heroic. The team overall against Iowa State. Excuse me? Oh, FAU. It can't always be heroic.
Yes.
It's got to be good.
It's got to be consistent.
Yeah.
So if you're counting on the 30-point Wade Taylor performance, I bet you're going to get another one or two of those as the year goes on.
Yeah.
But you've got to, you know what? You got to get the 16 to 24 from Wade on a nightly basis, and try to figure. Look, teams are focusing their defense on him to make it harder on him.
Yep.
So other guys have got to step up.
I do want to say this, from talking to basketball buddies throughout the years and just understanding basketball. Missing shots that are good shots, I understand. And sometimes this team misses good shots that just aren't falling. I think sometimes they're taking bad shots, though.
I agree.
So when both things aren't working, like I agree, like especially a guy like Wade, if you got an open shot, I don't care if you're 0 for 8. You should take your open shot, right?
Right.
Unless there's something in the scouting report that says, no, you need to attack or whatever, right? Like there are other players I don't give that same kind of grace to. Like we don't need to take bad shots.
True.
So
it's like a base stealer, right?
Ricky Henderson can do whatever he wants.
Hey, if you think you can take it, take it. But other guys, you're like,
Rafael
you don't
Palmeiro?
go until I give you the sign to
I'll
go.
give you that sign. We went old school on that.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us. We'll talk
Does
about
anybody still bases anymore?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. People. I mean, it's not like the 100. Like didn't Ricky used to steal 100 a year in Vince Coleman? It was over 100, right?
Yeah. I'm so old. I saw Lou Brock steal 2 bases.
No,
game.
you didn't.
I did.
He's in like 200 years old.
I was in the 7th grade.
Oh.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted your.
And there's probably part of our audience is like, Ricky who?
Or Lou who?
Lou who, yeah. If you want to be part of the conversation, call us. Tell us what you're thinking about Aggie basketball. Are we overreacting? Are we in the right spot? What do you think? 979-693-1150. You can also text us at 979-693-1150. If you do call us, we'll pick it up on the Brian Foley Law hotline. Couple text messages coming in. Sutton in College Station says, as it loads up slowly, the 2 things that stood out to me on the game were Coleman's inbound turnover, fouled with 1 second on the shot clock, and the game on the line that reflects coaching.
The inbounds turnover was tough, and I remember the play they're talking about with. I think it might have been Jace Carter. I mean, they're playing hard, but yeah, you gotta. There needs to be a little more awareness, but.
This from David in the Pacific Northwest. This is not nice, David. I thought we fired Melvin Watkins back in 2004.
Oh, my.
This is way different than that. I was there for that. You saw a lot of those games, didn't you?
Yeah. I'm not ready to go there.
No, it's not.
Now, that is being out on the ledge.
Dave in Houston, this is all on buzz and poor roster management recruiting. You can't emphasize defense without sacrificing offense. See Baylor. Well, I'll pause on that, David, is that we all thought this was a great roster heading into the season because they brought the bulk of it back. They did go into the portal like they had done the year prior, getting specialists. They're going to
continue to do.
Right? So that part I'll push back on. Now, and Buzz always gets a certain type of talent. It's not necessarily when it works, we love it, right? When you got a 3-4-star guy that just wants to play in the confines of a team defense and a team like the way we roll, it's great. When they don't score, it's an easy thing to point at.
Yeah, I think A&M is with the combination of Boots' injury and Dexter Dennis, I just don't think they're as tough as they were.
Yeah. I mean, and those are last year. Those are significant. The Penn State game, I always go back to that game because I hated the amount of 3-point shots that they took, and I still disagree with it. I still think it was not the right call. But the best player on the floor was Julius Marble for the first 10 minutes of the game, and then they stopped going to him. Didn't he score like the first 6 points of the game or 6 of the 8? 6?
And see, it's my contention is if you, and I would say this if he was playing this year, if you're counting on Julius Marble to lead you, you're going to lose. Julius Marble's not that kind of player. He's a nice forward.
Yeah.
But if he was that kind of player, I doubt if he would have.
He's not the reason, but you miss him. That's, I guess,
but
my point.
I think what you're saying is you can't, at least this team can't rely on they're not going to win typically a shootout at the 3-point line.
Hey, let me also say this, OB. It's so hard to compare this year to last year because you're missing Julius. Okay, that's one of your starters.
And you got to assume he's not coming. You're not going to have him at all.
You're not going to get him back. You're missing Dexter Dennis.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're missing Boots. I know Boots is there, but that's not the same Boots we've seen over the last couple of years.
It will be.
It will be, but he's not there yet.
Right.
So, is that 3/5 of your best players last year? 3 of your 4 best players last year. And now all the attention is to stop Wade.
Right.
And he's pressing.
Yeah.
So now, you got Levesque. That's what you're going to, you know what I'm saying? Others haven't stepped up. And by the way, I think Hayden Hefner's been nice this year. But if you are counting on Hayden Hefner to be your guy, then you got some problems. All right, let's go around the room and say we went long on that, but I thought it was worth it. Let's say hi to Nick Savage behind the glass. Nick, what up, buddy?
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up?
Well, all things considered, everything y'all have just said, it was a 4-point game with 1:20 left in it. So they were hanging in there in a really, raucous environment that looked crazy cool and out there on the plains. But I mean, tough loss for sure. But I guess I'm not too worried that they dropped that one because again. Not shooting well, not scoring a lot, 9-minute drought, like you said, OB, on the field goals. But again, at the end of the day, it was still a 4-point game there with under 1:30 to play.
You got a John Dutton vibe to you today. I like it. I like
Thanks.
the John Dutton vibe.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's just cold back here.
But I know you and I are probably on the same page. Like, it's good that we have a yin to our yang because that's a little bit more optimistic view than we presented. Yes, Nick, you're right. Like, you're not wrong. But after what has happened,
100%, yeah.
It makes Auburn hurt more.
You had the lead with 9.5.
48, 46.
9-15, 48. And you didn't score another basket.
Yep. Let's hit a break here. We'll come back. We'll read some more text messages. I also want to do something a little personal for a moment. Just talk to the people because I need some therapy here. But we'll do that here in a moment. Right now, it'll be... So the team had some issues traveling there, and I assume they got back last night or maybe this morning. I know where they need to go to remedy any kind of like hurt feelings, hurt shooting streaks. Where do they go?
I'd go to Fargo's.
Yeah, you would.
Today's Wednesday.
Yeah, today's Wednesday.
So you could get some chopped beef on a big baked potato.
God, isn't that good?
Need a little carbs.
It's cold too, right? That feels like it warms you up.
Yeah, and I think that give you that boost to get you through the rest of the week. That's like if you've been having a decent lunch, maybe disappointing lunches for a while, and today you go get that chopped beef, and it'd be like a momentum changer.
Honestly, you know what? Maybe don't go to Fargo's. I'm kind of kidding, but this is why. You remember? Well, at least I was this way. I did not want HD because can't be that good. Can't be that. Like, it's just TV. And then when you start HD, you're like, I can't watch anything but HD.
Yeah.
Blu-ray, I can't watch anything else. Right?
It's true.
Right? That's what Fargo's does to your other meals. It ruins everybody else. Like, you're like, once you have it, you're like, oh, I can't go back to that place. I got to go back to Fargo's.
That's right. It's a momentum changer.
It's a momentum changer. Yeah. It's a hot streak.
It's a hot streak.
It's like going into the hole.
It's like Henry Coleman getting 3 consecutive 3-point plays.
Oh, man, all day. 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan, without a doubt the what?
What, the best barbecue in Texas, i.e. the world.
Did you know that's their trademark?
Well, I knew it's true.
Yeah, it's Fargo's. Welcome back into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Garner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. They are the official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio. The difference is real. Rollo Insurance is an independent insurance company built around educating you on exactly what you're paying for, doing the shopping for you, so that you can accomplish all of your insurance goals. Their headquarters is right here in College Station on Highway 6. Call 888-44-ROLLO or go to rolloinsurance.com. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. OB, I want to talk about me for a moment.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk some football the rest of the hour. Okay? All right. So I made the wise move and the dumb move all at the same time, buying a couple of puppies 2 weeks ago.
Awesome. I applaud that.
Great. It made me feel, after, I think many of you know we lost one of our dogs about a month ago. And I was depressed for a little bit, right? And these puppies have brought me out of the depression, right?
I want to come over and play with them.
Right.
Go ahead.
They're awesome. And I've had puppies before, but I have no personal time anymore. Nobody in I forgot. And how stupid am I to have two at the same time? And I'm happy that I did it. There is so much, all they do is whine when they're not with you.
Yeah.
They bite everything.
Yeah.
They don't understand potty training. They do. Like, you take them outside, they potty, and then they come inside, they're like, you know what? I'm going to do it again. No, you don't do it. You just, no. They wake up at 4 a.m. At 4 a.m., they want to play.
Yeah.
They don't want to chill. They want to play.
They're puppies.
They're puppies.
And they're rescue puppies.
No, they're not rescues. These
Oh.
are not rescues. Yeah, no, these we went to a breeder, whatever you call it. But I love them. They're beautiful. They were needed.
Do you have 3 dogs now?
We have 3.
So you're a three-dog night.
Yeah, 3-dog night. But Beckham, our older dog,
Yeah.
named after David Beckham,
Right.
as you can imagine, he's chill. Like, he doesn't like him.
Well, he's an adult dog.
But like he plays, but like he'll just lay on his little pillow couch thing that he has. Like, he doesn't bother us. He wants to go outside. He'll go to the door. He'll whine a little bit. He'll go outside. He'll come right back. It's great. But puppies, they need your attention.
Mm-hmm.
Puppies, they want to bite. All they want to do is bite and rip your clothes up, and they attack, but it's a sweet attack.
Yeah.
Right? Is it too early to get a trainer? Does anybody know a trainer that can hook a brother up? Like, it's exhausting, because I usually do most of my prep around 4:30 in the morning. Okay?
Okay.
That's when I start. Like, I do work the night before, but I do like extensive work at 4:30. It's hard to work when everybody else is sleeping. And I'm trying to type on the laptop like standing because they think it's food and they're attacking it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, best move I've ever made, one of the worst at the same time.
They'll grow out of it, just like you did.
In 3 years.
You were once a kid that had boundless energy.
Yeah. And I got no energy.
And then
I need a nap every day at 4. That's what it feels like. But it is. I remember having kids, and the transition from no kids to the twins was I don't have a second. And then that becomes the new normal.
Yes.
Right? And now I took this job at TexAgs a couple years ago because I was I need to make every moment count with my kids because my boys are sophomores, right? They're going to be 16 in a couple of months. I need to, every second I can have. And then one day they're not going to be home. And I'm going to have all this extra time, right? So I know I'll get used to it at some point, but right now, it's just can I just eat, guys? Can one of the kids, of course, everybody deals with this. Oh, Dad, let's get 2. Let's get 2. We'll help.
Yeah, that never works.
They help, but they don't help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Believe me, I know.
Anyway, maybe since it's already 8:30, we'll do this in the next segment. But CBS Sports has their early top 25 for 20. You saw it?
No, but I always laugh at the early. How do you even do it? Not everybody has.
They don't know the roster,
right?
So we'll talk about that, and I'll let you know. Do you think the Aggies are on it or not?
Probably.
ESPN has one. Do you think the Aggies are on it or not?
ESPN probably not.
Okay. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
Right now, we are talking Heritage Films. That is Chance McClain's company, yourheritagefilm.com. They make documentary films about your family. They make documentary films about your parents. If your dad has a cool story about his life, how he started his business, how he started when he met your mom, if your grandfather was in the war and you've got some great stories from that. If you have a family ranch, if you're like John Dutton. Charles Dutton is an actor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to do Charles Dutton's heritage film, you can do that with Chance McClain or John Dutton's as well. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com. They also do the year flicks, which are these little 20-minute, like extensive Hollywood-esque kind of videos, Q&A forum with your kids, or it could be an adult as well. But mostly it's like freshman year of high school, freshman year of college, sophomore year, and you do these 20-minute videos each year. You do it'll become like 4 chapters of their life, right? When they pick their major, when they get engaged. It's awesome what they're into as a 15-year-old, what they're into as an 18-year-old. It's a really cool thing that he does. The website, again, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341. Yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341.
Always say he always comes up with the perfect bumper music.
Good old Sean.
Came back with 3 Dog Night. He's always listening.
A lot of people talking about the puppies on the YouTube channel.
Everybody loves dogs.
Just need some help. Hey, it's TexAgs Radio. Presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse.
I think talking about pups,
yep,
it's just a time to reminder. We talked about it yesterday, but a reminder about the congratulations to Kevin Smith, Pup, for going to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Trying to get him on the show soon. So
I talked to him yesterday.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the CBS top 25, way too early top 25. Who do you think number 1 is according to CBS? I think this is easy guess.
Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just say Georgia.
And I'm going to have another conversation maybe at the segment with you about Georgia. But number 2, Alabama.
Okay.
I can see that.
Number 3 is probably Ohio State.
Number 3, Michigan.
Michigan, okay.
That's, I guess, if J.J. McCarthy does come back. Number 4.
Why would he?
Yeah, he just won a national championship, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Number 4, Oregon.
Okay.
Oregon, the favorite to land.
I don't know.
Evan Stewart, according to On3.
Okay.
Yep. Number 5, Ole Miss.
I can see that.
Even without Judkins?
Yeah. Look, they've done well in the portal. They have a lot of starters come back, Judkins not being one of them. And you don't have to like Lane Kiffin, but the guy is a flat offensive, close to being an offensive genius in college football as there is.
6, Ohio State.
Okay.
Usual
suspects.
Yeah,
right?
the usual, right?
Clemson's probably going to show up here in the top 10.
No.
No.
Number 7.
Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Number 7.
I wonder about that, but okay.
Number 8.
Because think about the games that Texas just escaped. And I'm not trying to be a Texas hater here. I'm just being like, didn't they just escape UH? And didn't they just escape Kansas State? I think there's another one that they just escaped.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to be in that very unforgiving SEC. So when you show up on those days where you're not playing your best, you lose.
Yep.
So, but okay.
So, all right, we go now to 8, Missouri. Phenomenal year.
Phenomenal year.
They lost their defensive coordinator, but they've picked up some dudes. Number 9. Who does A&M open up with?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Man,
I don't know enough.
I was looking at some stuff from Notre Dame, and it's going to be interesting. I got to find out what seniors on the guys who are seniors are going to stay for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They're, especially on defense, they're losing a truckload of starters.
This one caught me off guard. Number 10, Arizona.
Yeah, I would pump the brakes a little bit. But they are going to be in the Big 12, so you're going to win a lot of games, perhaps.
11, Oklahoma.
Once again, the whole situation, you're going to be in a tougher conference.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be challenged more, and okay, but I think it's I of all the ones you just gave me, I think that's the most suspect.
12, LSU.
Okay. I think LSU will be a one loss worse than they were this year.
Utah at 13. I don't know enough. Whatever.
Yeah.
Tennessee 14. Sure.
Okay.
Washington 15. I don't know enough about who's coming back. I know Michael Penix ain't coming back.
Yeah, well, you know who their quarterback's going to be. Will
Rogers.
Rogers.
That's right. Will Rogers is going there. That's right.
He's a good
yeah,
one.
he's solid. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. 16, Penn State. Okay.
Yeah.
Kansas State, 17. They lost Will Lee. Colin Klein.
Yeah. Well, okay. Again, are you going to be the big fish in the small pond that is the Big 12?
18, SMU.
Okay.
They got hot last
now
year.
You're just getting silly, but okay.
19, Florida State.
All right, maybe. Man, they're losing a ton. They've already lost a ton.
20, Kansas.
Okay, if you say so.
I have not gotten to a couple of teams that we normally hear, or actually at least one. 21, Clemson.
See, Clemson, I think, is way undervalued there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not have been surprised if they would have put them at 9 or 10.
22, NC State.
Didn't Clemson beat Notre Dame?
Yeah.
And so Notre Dame is 9 with the guys they're losing. Clemson was a pretty young team, if I recall right. So the Clemson that beat Notre Dame, that's losing a lot of guys, is 9. But or Notre Dame is 9 and Clemson's 21. I'd scratch my head and wonder how you come to that. But okay.
Notre Dame, by the way, last year went 7-3. Or they were 7-3 at that point. I should say Clemson was 5-4 entering that game. Let's see.
Again, Clemson's young, as I recall.
Yep.
And Notre Dame, for some reason, I was just looking it up yesterday. Notre Dame's losing a lot of good guys on defense.
Yeah, they're number 9. That must be nice. 22, NC State.
Okay, if you say so.
23, Oklahoma State.
All right.
24.
Texas A&M?
Texas A&M.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really paying close attention, I can see where you would come to that. Come to that conclusion. You know, you got a good quarterback coming back from injury. You still have the nucleus of that team that should have been better, could have been better with better coaching.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, you think you're going to have better coaching, and you bring in some 2 or 3 really high-level prospects from the transfer portal, plus a lot of depth. Yeah, I mean, I can see why you'd come to that.
And then Louisville is going to be number 25.
Okay.
And I'm not going to give you the whole ESPN list. I am going to tell you who 1 and 2 is, just for a conversation. A&M did not make their top 25.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Georgia, number 1.
Okay.
And number 2, Texas.
Okay.
That's how they see it. Of course, I mean, ESPN is in love with the University of Texas. Oregon, 3.
Well, they've been in business. I mean, literally been in business with Texas.
For a while. So then I'm going to ask you this, OB. Not based on next year, but based on what we saw this year. Did the best team in college football win the national championship?
Yeah, I think they did. I do.
Do you think Michigan would have beat Georgia?
Yeah, I do. I think they would. However, I will say this. It would have been a much more competitive football game. I think that Michigan would not have been able to bully Georgia at the line of scrimmage like they did Washington.
See, I tend to think Georgia still wins it. I do. I think Georgia lost 1 game in 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Or 3 years.
3 years. Well, they lost, I guess 2, right? Because they lost to Alabama.
Didn't they go undefeated 2 years in a row? Did they
no,
not?
they lost to Bama in the SEC championship game.
That's right.
But
so 2 games.
And they were a play away from beating Bama, right? In that game?
It was a one
possession game. Yeah. I think had they been in the playoffs, they would have figured it out like they did the year that they lost the SEC championship game. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to ask you the top 3 teams in the SEC versus the top 3 teams in the Big Ten.
Okay.
Which was the better conference from the top 3? And if you want to say top 3, SEC is Georgia, Bama, Missouri, Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss. You can pick who the 3rd team is, okay?
Right.
Because both teams won 11 games.
I would say Ole Miss.
Okay. And then the top 3 teams from the Big Ten, Michigan, the national champions, Ohio State, and Penn State.
Well, the only games that were actually played was Ole Miss and Penn State.
And Ole Miss won.
And Ole Miss drove them.
Yep.
So
then, Michigan did play Bama and beat them.
Well, that's right. And beat them in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next game would have been, who would you take between Georgia and Ohio State?
I'm taking Georgia.
So
and I think I still take Georgia over Michigan.
Okay. Right there, even if if you think Georgia would have beat Ohio State, it's 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, SEC was better. I think it's better conference. I still do. And by the way, as you go, further, I think A&M would have, with all their issues, if A&M was in the Big Ten West.
They're in the playoffs?
I don't know that they'd have beat Michigan, but they would have probably been in the the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
I mean, Iowa, they couldn't score. By the way, Iowa was in the Big Ten championship game, and they got beat 35-0 by Tennessee.
So going back to the top 25 for next year, right? A&M coming in at 24th. Let's just say that's the kind of team they are. To me, what that means is if they are in the top 25, they are in the mix for the playoffs next year. In the mix. Obviously, it's the top, not necessarily how it works out, top 12 teams, but 12 teams are getting in. If you're in the top 25, you are at least being discussed.
I hope in November they're into the discussion.
Right. What do you think in November? You got to be in 19, 20 to be really in the discussion?
Yeah, you need to be in the top 20 for sure. We'll know if they're in the discussion on September 1st.
How many SEC teams do you think get in? 3, 4?
Well, I would 3 or 4. I would expect.
Same with the Big Ten?
Could be 5. Big Ten, now that USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon in, yeah, they
3?
No, I mean I could see them getting 3 or 4.
Okay, so that's 8 ballpark. You've got
if not more. I mean,
somebody from the ACC.
This is the way Clemson. This is the way it's going. It's going to be the They're going to have two major conferences someday. It'll be the SEC
Anybody
and
from
the
the Big 12?
Yeah, probably their champion.
Yeah.
Their champion. And I don't even know what the Pac-12 is going to be. The Pac-2?
Pac-2-ish, yeah.
Does the Mountain West teams add the remaining Pac-12 team and change their name to Pac?
The Tupac.
Yeah, well, you know how that went.
Vegas, baby. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah.
Well,
and what again? Do you want your conference to die?
Aren't we all going to die?
I'm just asking. Are you asking for it?
Let's take a break here. If you want to text the show, I see a bunch of things. By the way, Landon provides this on the text line. Florida State does play SMU next year, too. So those two teams will be playing each other. Time to talk a little Ascend Concrete and Lifting, 979-933-8527. Don't replace it, lift it. They're Aggie-owned and operated concrete lifting and support company providing an easy, clean service at half the price of replacement. So you don't have to replace your entire driveway, your backyard patio. You don't have to replace the whole thing. You can lift it, get it looking seamless. They are problem solvers when it comes to most concrete issues. Their concrete raising jobs last a couple hours, start to finish, and then your concrete will be ready to use immediately. You know, like when you get new concrete, you got to wait a couple days to get on it. Not with this. This is once they're done, you're back on it. 60 years of professional construction and concrete experience. You got Brian Dickerson out there, Aggie owned and operated, as I mentioned. And their service area is local, statewide, and nationwide. 979-933-8527. They can raise and lift and stabilize any form of concrete slab. Once the project is finished, the appearance is close to seamless to the eyes out there. You got residential, you got commercial, you got industrial, municipal. It is Ascend Lift, a fraction of the cost of replacement. Make sure you follow them on Facebook or on Instagram. Call 979-933-8527 for an appointment. Don't replace it, lift it. Estamos aquí. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go. Hour coming to a close here, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. OB, you just made me feel good about something a moment ago. You were going through those rankings, or you were going through the final rankings, I should say, and then you're like, bruh. You actually used the word bruh. No, you didn't. You were like, bruh, A&M had a chance in all these games. Kind of go through that.
I'm looking at the final AP Top 25. Alabama was 5th. They were in overtime with the national champion. You had an opportunity to win that game. You let it get away, like they did. You're on the road against Ole Miss with a lead in the final minutes, and Ole Miss finished 9th. Mm-hmm. And, you're on the road against Tennessee, and you just pissed that one away.
Yep.
And they finished 17th, right? And you did this with a backup quarterback and
some coaching
a bad
issues.
Culture, some coaching issues. So with a starting quarterback, I'm doing this to myself. I hate to do this to myself. I'm being Al Pacino in Godfather 3. You're bringing me back. Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in.
There you go.
And I'm thinking, all right, with a better coaching and your quarterback and, guys coming in to replace the guys going out, and maybe there's a better culture, maybe that top 24, 25 ranking isn't so outlandish.
Next year, what would make you happy? Obviously, playoffs, 11 wins. I'm just saying, what kind of improvement? Is a 9-win season going to make you feel happy?
Okay, 9 wins.
Before the bowl, by the way.
9 wins would make me happy. But I still maintain that A&M, with all the investment and all the advantages, should expect 10 wins a year.
Thank you. By the way, I've gotten to a point that outside of the Orange Bowl after in 2020, bowl wins don't count on my record anymore, unless it's a playoff.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do in the taxidermy bowl. I don't care. I mean, I want you to win, but I'm not adding that to my 10-win season. Oh, hey, we got 10 wins. Unless it's a bowl of substance, I don't care anymore.
I understand that. And did we talk about my plan to make the bowls better?
Tell me.
Well, the payout. Every bowl pays out a certain amount. We'll now take 25% of that payout, and it goes directly to the players. 60% to the winner, 40% for the loser. So you get the players are going to get, and the universities themselves can decide how it's going to be distributed. But you have to play. You absolutely have to play in the game to get the money. So now as a player, I have a financial reason to want to play, and not just play, but win, because I get more money if you win the game. Also, it gives me in the regular season as a player motivation to try to win those last few games, because the better the bowl game, the better the payout.
But what about the players that have people in their ear? They're like, dude, you can make more than that in the draft.
Yeah, some will.
Yeah.
But at least you have a financial incentive to play, a real financial incentive to play.
Real financial incentive. OB, we talked basketball. It wasn't the most fun part of the hour.
Yeah.
Football felt a little better.
Yeah.
Puppy talk kind of brought me down, but you brought me back up.
Yeah. The problem is football talk always feels good in January, late January, February.
Yeah.
And let's hope Mike Elko can make it fun in November and October.
An interesting case study would be, where would we be today if they didn't make the change? What players would have left? What players would have stayed? What would the fan base be feeling? I think a lot of apathy and really not caring.
Yeah, I agree. But you know what? I still think the change I'm most excited about is your strength and conditioning coach,
Me
Moffitt.
too. I agree with that.
Change that culture.
OB, appreciate you, sir.
Yes.
All right, hour number 2 is going to be stacked. John Harris, Coach Pat Henry, Tom Schuberth, all of that in hour number 2. Bronny to talk a little transfer portal at 10 a.m. and a little pounding the rock just with Hop today. No Tap today, just Hop today at 10:35. That and, of course, your text messages at 979-693-1150. It's TexAgs Radio. Welcome back into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Wallow Insurance Studio. It is hour number 2 here on the program, working on getting John Harris on the show. We'll let you know when he is available. I want to follow up with that commentary on Georgia. I do think Georgia was the best team in college football this year. I know they lost, and Michigan didn't, and Michigan deserves the championship, and it would have been a great matchup. But I think it is a travesty that, and I don't know how you fix it, and it won't matter moving forward. It won't matter, right? Like, because you'll have 12 teams getting in, but I think it is ridiculous that Georgia wasn't in the championship, and it's just because of the timing. You can't have a loss at the end and still get into the playoffs, even if your loss came into one of the top 5 teams in the country. Ohio State, I mean, they had a bone to pick, right? I think it's unfortunate, and at the end of the day, John Harris, by the way, said he's on the Zoom. So at the end of the day, I still think Georgia was the best team in college football. They should have been one of the 4 teams, but I don't know who you get rid of. I don't know. You can make an argument. Well, Texas, they had a lot. Yeah, Texas had a loss. Let's talk to John Harris about it. Houston Texans sideline reporter and, of course, footballtakeover.com czar. Johnny, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, man. How you doing, David?
I'm good. I know last week for you was awesome, man. And we'll get into the Texans part of it, but you had the national championship game. You had the Texans victory. You had the Titans winning, and what a week for you, buddy.
Well, it actually started Christmas Eve. We had a Christmas Eve home game, which wasn't great, but we had a Christmas Eve home game. We had then the Texas Bowl was 3 days later. Then we had a New Year's Eve day game at home against the Titans. Then we went to Indy a day early to play a primetime game. And then we had the national championship Monday night, and then we got a playoff game on Saturday. So, the other side of awesome is exhaustion. I'm just trying to get as much rest as I possibly can, which is not working. To get ready for this one on Saturday. But, I mean, I'll look back at this probably February, March, and go, holy cow, that was awesome. I'll go do that again because it's been really amazing other than getting our butt kicked by the Browns on Christmas Eve. Other than that, it's been fantastic. I mean, you and I didn't even get a chance to talk about this. I know the Aggies lost that bowl game, but, man, I'd be really proud of the way that group played. They played hard. I was calling the game. I was worried that Oklahoma State, with all their guys, oh, gosh, this is not going to be pretty. And then, of course, when Jalen goes out the first play, I'm thinking, oh, boy, this is not going to be a nice night. Then Marshall Reed came in and made a case for him to be a starting quarterback at A&M or somewhere because he was fantastic and really kept him in the game. So it's been a really incredible last, couple of weeks. And hopefully it continues on into February. That'd be really, really cool. So, we're just fingers crossed that we can go toe-to-toe with power.
I think we just lost John Harris. We'll see. We'll give him a second to pop back up. I thought I just saw it move. Nope, he didn't move. So we'll try to get him on another way. Nick will let me know when we get him. But what I was going to get with John about, and there's a lot I want to talk about NFL-wise too, but from what we were starting the segment with, the national championship, was, who is the best team in college football? Michigan won it all, but are they really the best team in your eyes? Would they have beat Georgia? Would they have beat Ohio State a second time in a row? At the end of the day, I think Michigan was awesome, and we deserve to see it. Johnny, I was just talking. I would have loved to have seen Georgia-Michigan because I still think Georgia, to me, even though they didn't win the national championship, they had the loss. I still think they would have won the playoffs had they gotten in.
It's funny. I heard that from a lot of people, David, about Georgia. And I do think that, Georgia, boy, I mean, I think Georgia would have matched up better with Michigan than Washington did. It would have been interesting to see how Georgia would have responded because I think Michigan was a much more physical team than they were back in 21 when Georgia beat them in a playoff. And, the unfortunate thing about a 14 playoff is, sometimes it matters when you lose. Obviously, Alabama lost early, but they got the win over Georgia. Georgia loses early and gets it out of the way. I think Georgia plays better each and every week. And then Georgia wins the SEC championship. Yeah, I think we're talking about Georgia as a national champion, but it just obviously matters when you lose in this sport, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I also feel like talented, but they didn't play like previous teams at Georgia did. And I think sometimes we get lost, especially in college football, with, well, they were in the first 2 years and were champions. Like, no. This year, it's a one-year deal. We're not talking about, what they were. We're talking about what they are. And I think some people get lost in that, And so I know people were like, Washington. I mean, I know Washington was undefeated, but like Washington, why is Washington in there? Georgia's better than Washington. Okay, yeah, maybe. But this year, Washington was probably better overall in most facets than Washington. Now, would Georgia have beaten Washington? Probably. But we're talking about this year, not other years. And almost every argument for Georgia went back to what they did in previous years. Because the Georgia that I saw struggled to beat Auburn on the road, Alabama in a neutral site, and really got it handed to them. Florida State, but Florida State had nobody on the field. So what are you going to do? That game to me just really doesn't even matter. David, you know how much I love college football. You know, I watched that Georgia-Florida State game, 5 plays, done. Like, I'm out. I'm not wasting my time. I got other things, especially with what I talked about earlier with all the games we had going on. So that to me is the hardest thing. You got to keep it this year. And that's one of the things I like about the NFL is it's kept to this year. What are you doing this year? Because if it was based on last year, then, well, the Jaguars would have won the AFC South and not us. Because it was based on this year and records in this year, well, we win the division. Jacksonville beat us at home the last time we played. So I just feel like you can't use last year or previous year's arguments. You can't. That's just not – it's not possible. Now, when you get to 12 teams, then those arguments become even more muted, in my opinion. But would Georgia have won it? If Georgia got a rematch with Alabama, they had beaten Alabama? Probably. The Alabama that we saw in the Rose Bowl? Yeah. Would Georgia beat Washington? Probably. Would Georgia beat Michigan? Now, that would have been a game I'd like to see because those would have been heavyweight fighters going at it all night long. It would have been a bloodbath. Washington couldn't hang in. They tried, and I give credit for that kind of second and third quarter. They held up the defense in particular, but first quarter, fourth quarter, couldn't hang in there. I think Georgia would have against Michigan. I think that would have probably been a better matchup, but Georgia didn't for this season with no marquee wins and really in the only games that kind of mattered, they lost. So at that point, would Georgia have given Michigan a better game? Probably, but they're pretty banged up too. So don't like last year. Well, they were this. Well, how do you know? Because this year, when I watched Georgia, they were good a couple of games. They weren't very good a couple of games. I feel like last year's group, even with Stetson Bennett driving it over Carson Beck, I feel like last year's Georgia team would have beaten this one by 7-10.
Talking to Johnny Harris here on TexAgs Radio. Johnny, I keep reading and seeing people saying, well, next year, SEC teams can make a little bit of mistakes and get a mulligan and get invited to the playoffs. I disagree with that. Look, because you're expanding the 12, yes, a 10-2 team has a chance to get into the playoff. But that doesn't mean these mistakes, because there's going to be a couple of those teams that are going to be in the mix. The kind of losses that you have, those mulligans, I don't think are necessarily there. It's just expanded, and we expect 3 or 4 SEC teams to get in. But I don't know if that means you get an extra loss because it's still going to be 12 teams.
Yeah, David. I mean, I don't know. My connection is staying strong this morning. My internet just wants to fade on me all day, so I'm sorry about that.
All good.
But I feel like you can hear me, David. You want me to reconnect?
We're going to call you. We'll just call you right now, and we'll have you take it from there. So if the folks at Brian Broadcasting can call Johnny, we'll talk to Johnny on the phone just to make it easier. And basically, my question, I mean, it was not a question. It's just more of a commentary. Like I've read on several occasions that SEC teams can have a mistake or two next year and still get invited to the playoffs? Well, yes, because it's not going to be just undefeated teams. The playoffs have expanded, but with as many good teams that are in the SEC, you still got to be careful where you lose and who you lose to. So we go back to the Brian Foley Law Hotline where we find John Harris. All right, Johnny, take it away.
Yeah, Dave, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on my internet. I just decided to wake up and be moody this morning for whatever reason. You're absolutely right. I think there's this thought that, at 12 teams, we'll get 4 from the SEC. We just got to be top 4. I don't think so. Because if you're thinking that in the SEC, even the most reasonable Big Ten fan is going, well, if you're thinking you're getting 4 from the SEC, well, we're getting 3 from the Big Ten. Well, okay, that's 7. Oh, wait a second. You got to have 5 champions, right? So you're only getting 7 at-large bids. At-large, and one of them's got to go to a non-power 5, right? So you start doing the numbers on this, man, wait a second. We can't afford to end up sitting there at 13, 14, 15 and let the committee decide our fate. That just can't happen. So, I think Ole Miss at the end of the year, at the end of the regular season, I think was 11. I think Ole Miss was 11, and Ole Miss had one hell of a year. 11. The rankings don't always match up with what the committee looks at, but that be more right about this, that you got to be very, very careful. I think you might team in there. And I think the way you get a 10-2 team in there is if that particular team has played a gauntlet of a schedule. For example, Michigan's schedule next year, Washington, Texas, State, Oregon's in there, but I think Oregon might be another year. I can't remember that one. But they play 5 teams that are legit top 10 ranked teams. So seeing those 11-1, 10-2, but doesn't win the league, but goes through that gauntlet of a schedule, holy cow. Games I said was Texas. That's a non-conference game for Michigan, but I think that's going to help a team that does finish 10-2. So finish 10-2, non-conference is just okay. But you're going to have a higher bar to cross. Mainly, you're going to have to finish 12-1. You're going to have to be tied with, maybe you're the third team at 12-1, but you can't get the championship because of tiebreakers or whatever. I think that's the way you're going to get 3 teams from a conference in. I don't think there is. 10-2 gets us in. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen because you're going to end up having in the SEC potentially 1 undefeated, 12-1, maybe 2 12-1s, maybe. In the Big Ten, you're going to have probably, I would think, 3 12-1s, a couple 11-2s, maybe something like that. And then, the ACC, Big 12, I don't know how people are going to look at the Big 12 and ACC, but those are the 2 really to kind of keep an eye on. Now, they might get the majority of them. You might get 4 from the SEC. You might get 3 from the Big 10. But I think if you have that happen, then this playoff is going to change again because the ACC and Big 12 will start squawking. Then the Big 10 and the SEC are like, well, we're going to take our ball and go over here and just have us a legit college football teams over here and play for a title. So it could change down the road. I feel like it's not a fait accompli that you're getting 3 or 4 teams dramatically from a 12-team playoff. Now, the SEC probably have 4 or 5 of the best 12 in college football. Probably. But you're not going to get the Big 10 to buy that, and you're certainly not going to get the Big 12 ACC to buy that as well, especially if Clemson can turn back around to, be with Florida State, and then you get one other surprise team, maybe Miami, with all the NIL money they're spending, can get them going. I just don't think it's automatic. I do think probably 3. So can you be in the top 3 at 10-2? Really hard in the SEC.
Talking to John Harris here on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Johnny, Texans, Browns, the irony of it being those 2 teams, it's just it's not lost on me. And the fact that the Texans, when I left ABC 13 a couple years ago. Honestly, I know that's your organization, but I was happy to get away from the dysfunction that it was. Oh. And amazingly, what a head coach and a competent, nice young man quarterback can do for the perception and also for the production.
Yeah, I mean, David, you hit right on it. I mean, it's football. I think it's you don't have to have. Like J.J. McCarthy's a good quarterback. Greatest in Michigan history. Maybe he is. I don't know. Michigan's not had great quarterbacks other than Brady. I know people, freak out about that in some sense, but Brady is a tremendous quarterback and was a tremendous quarterback. But J.J. McCarthy wasn't. I mean, Stetson Bennett wasn't. You don't need that quarterback to win at the college level. I do think you have to have the leader above, a one-name guy, Nick, Dabo, Jim. Well, I don't know, Jim. That's pretty common, I guess. But you've got to have a talent unrivaled to be able to win a college national championship. You don't have to have that quarterback. In the NFL, you've got to have that quarterback. You've got to have that guy. Think about, salary cap in the NFL. Everybody can spend $200 million. Well, some teams can spend 50 of that on a quarterback that is otherworldly. Others are trying to make do with a guy that makes $15 million. You can only get them to 9-7. So you've got to have the quarterback, and that quarterback meshes with the head coach. Really have got something. If the quarterback meshes with the head coach, who then vibes with the GM, you got something special, and hopefully that's what we got going in Houston right now. And you're right, the irony's not lost on a few people. I think because Deshaun's not playing, there's a little bit of that's lost. But I got a feeling it'll come up during the broadcast about the trade and how much we got out of that trade, et cetera. And one of the pieces we were able to get out of that trade through other trades was Will Anderson Jr. And he's been a rock solid piece. He's the CJ on the defensive side. We needed that elite competitor. We needed that guy that off the field, in meetings, he sits in the front row. He's there at 7:00 for an 8:00 meeting, taking notes by himself. Those are the things we needed. And great NFL teams have those things. You think about the Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not saying we're the Chiefs, at least not yet. Hopefully we're on the way to being that. But the Chiefs have that combination. So hopefully we've got that. Now, the Browns are the best team I've seen all year, and they put it to us. But we didn't have Will. We didn't have CJ. We didn't have Blake Cashman, one of our top 10 players. We didn't have probably 3 or 4 other guys. We were banged up, and they just swallowed us whole. So we've got to rise up, and we got to land the first punch, and we got to land one hard like we did the other night against the Colts. And if we can do that, get some confidence and get that building rocking, there's no telling what can happen. But I'm just proud of this team, David. But I'm right there with you. I saw the dysfunction up close. I saw it happening. And I would walk into the studio, slam the door, and sit across from Mark Vandermeer, and the two of us would just sit there like, what are we doing? Why is this happening? Well, I mean, we would get tweets like, Johnny, Mark, I love you guys, but I just can't listen anymore. I can't. Not with the organization being the way it is. So fast forward to Saturday night, bus, voice, I turn around, brace, and both of us were about in tears because of what we've gone through the last 3 years. Now, it's of our own volition, but what we've gone through, and now flip the script to win a game like that. I don't think anybody saw. Nobody saw that happening in September, much less, back in 2022. So it's been a wild ride. I don't want it to end, but it's going to be a tough one on Saturday against a really good Browns squad led by Hall of Famer Myles Garrett.
Johnny, I appreciate you, sir. I was going to try to get a Cowboy take in, but we're up against the clock, so we'll chat next week. All right?
Yeah, man, sounds good. Hope the Cowboys lose. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Johnny. Oh, Johnny Harris. Sorry, Cowboy fans. Right now, we're talking Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. They have amazing deals that start on their website. Like, you go there to see the vehicles that they have, the pricing that they have, just to kind of get a feel for it wherever you are, because you're listening all over the country. You're listening somewhere in Texas, right? If in the Brazos Valley, again, it's the easy place to go to. When you go there, you're going to love the customer service. You're going to love the vehicles that they have on the lot and the whole experience, because that is one thing that I have friends who have gone, I have experienced, and I have coworkers that have gone. They all say the same thing, like, man, that service at Caldwell Country is on a different level. It's kind of like the HD comment I made earlier. You didn't realize it till you had it. Well, same thing when you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. You don't realize what great customer service is until you go there. It's not a far drive if you're here in College Station or in Bryan. 15 minutes, Bryan to Caldwell, the very edge of Bryan to the very beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the good people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. I miss these talks. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is now time for our weekly catch-up with Pat Henry, the first of 2024, brought to you by Brazos Running Company, your local Aggie-owned specialty running store. Save 10% in the store when you mention the code TexAgs10. Check out the new location at Century Square Billy Laughs, because we're like old buddies when we get together here on the show. I ask you about running questions. I ask you about life. And how you been, man?
Yeah, doing real good.
Good.
Real good. When you start talking about young people and your children, I went through that, so I enjoy that. You know, that's fun to talk about those. It makes me think back what I was doing when I was your age.
Well, when the segment ends, I have something for you. Just get your advice on something. But let's talk about things. By the way, our good friend Eric Casares, he's coming back. He'll be back next week, so he'll be joining us. He'll be part of the team doing these segments on Wednesday. So, how are you feeling about where everything is, and obviously the new facility we got to get into, the season ahead? How do you feel about things?
Yeah, I mean, the administration, everybody's got me going 100 miles an hour on a facility, and I'm a coach. You know, I got to get my team ready. Most important. But yeah, we're opening a new facility, and it's an eye opener. I think when people walk in the door, they're going to be impressed at just the visual, just the optics of walking in the door is going to be a different experience, completely different than the other facility. Not saying it's better, not saying it's different. This one is, people will enjoy it. There's seating all the way around on this one, so that makes it much different.
Yeah, and it took so long. It probably didn't take so long, but it felt like it took a long time. And in the construction world, obviously, it probably didn't. But
no, it didn't. It didn't. But
for season standards,
yeah, for us, we were outside. I mean, we missed 2 seasons, both running outdoor track meets as well, because it tore up all our throwing fields, and you can't have a meet if you can't throw the discus and the jab and the hammer and have all the events. So we missed an outdoor season as well. So it's we get to start back over again, and I think our footprint over at EB Cushing now with another practice track with just outside of this new building. It's only 200 meters, and it's the shape of a candy cane.
Okay.
And it's around the throwing field. It's just purely warm up. But that means all of our facilities are right there. We used to have to drive across the railroad tracks, find a place to park. That was tough. At 2:30 in the afternoon to have a practice on the other side of the tracks and find parking with 70 people. That was always a challenge, moving to an indoor facility away from your outdoor facility. Now we have them both together, so that makes things a lot better.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to talk a little bit about the setup. I forget the proper way to talk about it, but the bank.
The bank.
It's 12 degrees.
12 degrees.
Which is
that's what we're calling this one. But it's really just informational.
Okay.
The 12 is synonymous with us.
Right.
But the 12 degree is the height of the turn. So indoors you're running 200 meters, half of what you run outdoors. You run 400 meters outdoors, 200 meters indoors. You know, the building can't hold a 400-meter track. You can't put a 400-meter track indoors. So 200 meters, and the bank of the turn at its highest point is 12 degrees. At, of course, both turns. That's the world governing body sets that, not the NCAA.
Okay.
It's the world governing body, just like soccer. Soccer's rules are world rules. And so it's a 12-degree bank. That's all they will certify. You can be lower than 12 degrees, but it cannot be higher. So every great facility, if you just think if you're on a car and you're driving this fast and you go around a flat turn, is much different than it would be going around a bank turn.
Yep. Same
concept with a man or a woman running around a turn.
Let's talk about Saturday, because it's all unveiled. The invitational's coming in.
Yep, we have a good meet with Florida, TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma here to open our facility. That's a great group of people, and we're looking forward to this meet. We have some field events, of course, in the AM that will start in the AM, and then our national anthem and our running events will start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right. Yeah.
We project it to be over. We're starting at 2 to be over about 5:45. People who have not, we've talked about this before, David, you know, you go to a high school meet, and I was a high school coach. Tough to put on high school meets because they get real big, lots of teams. So, and you're there from 10 in the morning till 10 at night. That's not a college track meet.
Yep.
You know, we're trying to put a college track meet into 3 hours, just like going and watching a basketball game. You're going to be there for that time frame. You know when it starts, you know when it ends. Mm-hmm. And that's my goal. Now I'm moving into a new facility.
Could be some hiccups.
Yeah, oh yeah. And different warm-up protocols. A lot of things are different. This is a huge challenge this weekend for my staff, for us, and for the administration staff that helps us to do this. To put on a track meet is a significant event. We've got 100 officials who volunteer. Organization of 100 volunteers all the time is tough.
Yeah.
So, but it's going, and we're going to be ready to go.
Excuse the ignorance, but how long in track and field does it take for home field advantage to be a thing? Because this is brand new for all your players, right? Like, so is that something maybe by mid-season, training there a few times a week will get you there quick? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I think I've heard a commercial, and you just said it. Players, we don't have players.
That's
right. We have athletes.
Athletes, that's right.
Yeah, and you hear that on TV right now. We don't have players. We have athletes. But rephrase your question again to me.
Okay, how long will it take these athletes?
Yeah.
Typically in that world to be accustomed or make that a home field advantage, if you will.
That first gun at 2:00.
Okay. That's their home.
Then it's ours. And we've been able to get inside and train only about 3 days right now. We've only had the facility for 3 or 4 days. Our team has only been in there 3 or 4 times. So we are not acclimated to a new environment yet either. We're getting there. And anytime you're a new team, you're a visiting team, it's tough to acclimate to a new basketball court. It's tough to back to the surroundings, all of that stuff. And if you fill the building and it's loud, it's our advantage. And young people respond to outside forces.
Which athletes do we need to know about this year? There's obviously some names that we've come accustomed to knowing. Lamar Diston obviously comes up all the time, named to the Bowerman preseason watch list.
Yeah.
Second straight year she's on that watch list.
Yeah, and that's big time because there's only 4, 5, 6 on that list right now. But Lamara is a good athlete as we have. But on the ladies' side, I can go real quick. We have good pole vaulter back, Heather Abady, our best quarter miler and one that's done very well. Jamisha Arnold is back. Janiah Covington, our hurdler. Cameron Dixon, our sprinter. Samira Killebrew, our sprinter. John Thomas, Kennedy Wade. Those are names that were NCAA names for us on the ladies' side. On the men's side, Eric is back on the track. You just talked about Eric. We have another miler in Cooper Kothra. Carter Bajwa, our high jumper, is back. DeMarco Escobar. We have a 4x4 that ran 3 flat last year of DeMarco Escobar, Etoway, Eric Hemphill, and let me see, Zamzo. That group of guys is all back.
Yeah.
And so we have some experience there. Jack Mann, our good pole vaulter, is back. Husan Pereira, our school record holder in the high jump, is back. Ahmad Robinson is the one name I was leaving off of there. The best hurdler we've had in quite a while, Connor Schulman, is back, and our good half miler Sam Whitmarsh is back. Plus, we've really added some good talent, but I don't talk about those new people until they do something.
Yeah.
As soon as they do something, we'll start talking about them, and their opportunity starts this weekend.
I don't want to say expectations because I know you have high expectations, but do you expect this, with the talent you've assembled, to be a nice season for you all?
Yeah, I think we can be pretty competitive this year. Mm-hmm. This is my 20th season at A&M. Doesn't seem like we've been here 20 years, but we have. We haven't finished out of the top 10 schools in the United States, and really out of the top 5 or 6 schools in the country very many years of those 20 years. We've been competitive most every year. We've been in the mix. We've won it 9 times. We've been the national champions 9 times. So we have a competitive group of people all the time. And it's hard to predict our sport, especially at this time of the year. I can start seeing some things as we move, 2 months from now. I'll start seeing some things. As far as a group comes, ours is an individual sport, but because of a lot of great individuals, you have a team.
Yeah. Got to hit a break here.
Yep.
So happy to have you back here.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in. We'll see you next week with Eric. And by the way, this is brought to you by Brazos Running Company. I got 2 things for you off air to ask you. All right,
but I hope everybody comes to the meet. You really, if you hadn't been, actually, there's no charge for this meet.
Come on, let's go. Yeah. Let's get people there.
First responders are running a relay this weekend. We got lots of things going on indoors. So if you want to see a bunch of guys come and have a hard time getting around the oval, you might want to come watch the first responders.
All right, right now, caller number 1, we're going to give you a free car wash from Aggie Land Express Car Wash in South College Station off of William D. Fitch in Greens Prairie. Aggie owned and operated with the friendliest staff and a personal touch. They offer a monthly membership. We'll give the first caller a free car wash right now from Aggie Land Express in South College Station. 979-693-1150. We're back, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I didn't ask on the air. I wanted to make sure I got Coach Henry's permission. But Bryce Foster is going to put for them this year, so for track and field. But he will not be doing it indoor. He'll be doing it during the outdoor portion. So just those of you who are asking about that, I did get clarification on that. Tom Schuberth is with us, the coach. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, David?
One day we're going to do a thing called TexAgs After Dark, where the conversations that we have off air are on air. But okay? But we're not going to do that now.
No.
We're going to play a game.
Okay.
Explain to me like I'm 3, okay? As a coach, why and again, I mean this with respect.
Sure.
Explain to me from a coach's perspective, like I'm a 3-year-old, why a team would continue to do something that they're not good at. And I'm going back to the shooting threes. They shoot way too many threes, talking about Aggie basketball, for a team that's not a good three-point shooting team.
Well, the one thing you have to remember, there's always 2 teams out there. Yeah. So one team's trying to do one thing and one team's trying to do another. In other words, when you're really good at something, obviously that opposition is not just going to let you do it. So they're trying to take away your strengths. And that's, again, what happens in practices. It happens in the film room. It happens in meetings. And you try to get that across to your players. So I think a lot of our problems have been because the other team has watched a lot of tape. They've taken away our strengths. I do think sometimes, though, we're not going to shoot the ball well if we don't get quality shots. It's hard to be a tough shot maker regardless of what level you're at. Steph Curry's a great example. He'll have nights when he's unconscious and making, 80% of his threes, and then sometimes he'll go 4 for 22, So,
but he's the greatest shooter maybe in the history of the game, right?
I agree. Correct. Yes, sir.
So he gets a different kind of grace.
Absolutely, yes. And that's the other thing. I think who's taking the threes? You can have a good shooting team with only having a couple good shooters. You just have to make sure they take the majority of the shots. Yep. So, what's a good shot for one of your guys may not be a good shot for another. Again, I wish we would maybe mix in some sets to get a great look. To me, the difference this year is that we haven't got as many quality looks as we had last year. Again, I think the opposition has a little bit to do with that, taking those strengths away.
So to me, there's certain types of players that I say, and I'm not talking about Steph. I'm talking like, I'll go back to the 90s. Kenny Smith wasn't the best three-point shooter, but was a streaky good three-point shooter. Kenny, you can shoot those threes. Matt Maloney, you can shoot. Nick Van Exel, he some days was the best player on the court and some days would shoot you out of games, but he had that grace. I don't know, outside of Wade, if they've got a guy that can shoot and just keep shooting. So that brings up my next point. This team doesn't get a lot of easy buckets either. How do they get more easy buckets? I know the defense makes it hard for them to do it, but they've got to find ways to get points in transition.
Absolutely. I think, again, the philosophy of the coach is based on they're with them every day, so they know their team better than anybody. So I don't want to be critical and say, this is what we need to do. But I do think you've got to get your good shooters good shots. Sometimes it's a responsibility to coach to get them good looks or whoever it may be. And so that goes in practice or, a design play. I think that a guy like Hayden Hefner, he's a very good three-point shooter. When he's in the game, he needs to have the opportunity to get a couple open looks. Yeah. But Taylor is an elite shooter. He's obviously not making threes, but he's not getting any good looks. And then I think he presses and struggles and then starts taking some bad shots.
I qualify it every time I'm a little critical because I do believe Buzz is a master at mixing ingredients when things aren't going. Like he's going to figure something out with this group this year. That I believe, right?
I do too. 2 years ago when we lost 8 in a row in the league, I mean, we weren't winning close games. We couldn't make a play at the end. Last year when we went 15-3, it seemed like everything we did went right down the stretch, made big free throws, made a big shot. And then this year we've got off to a bad start. But ironically, that game last night against Auburn, I mean, it was a 2-minute ball game, and if we make a tough shot or get a stop, we win that game, which is ironic because Auburn's playing well. I think we match up against teams like Auburn and the Kentuckys and the Alabamas that are really talented, but yet they play a little bit looser than we do. And if we're able to get a big stop, we can win those games. So it's a lot of it is on us.
Here's where I worry and I struggle. It goes back to a couple years ago. You're smiling because you know where I'm going with this. Like, sometimes it feels like offensively it takes heroic efforts to win games. Quentin Jackson went on a roll in 21. Was it 21? Yeah. All right. Last year, Wade Taylor went on a roll. This year, Wade Taylor has gone on a couple rolls which bring you back in games. The Iowa State game, that was an amazing comeback by the team. The Houston game, they fell short, but he went crazy, right? Sometimes that's not sustainable long term, right? It's like and eventually Boots will be comfortable. I feel like Boots is going to be Boots again at some point.
I think so. You know, he hasn't played as good as he's capable of playing, obviously. I don't know if that's injury or just being rusty or, again, I think having Boots and Wade, you know, the talent they are, the other teams are designing their defenses to try to take them out of the game or at least minimize their effectiveness. You know, Coach Williams, his philosophy is probably different than Bruce Pearl's or any other coach in the SEC. They do it on blue-collar mentality. I just wish we maybe not necessarily refine our offense, but maybe be a little more patient and try to maybe put in some sets. I don't know what they're working on. But, yes, you cannot rely on heroics and be consistently good. I think you're going to have some upsets and beat people, and we've had some great comebacks. In the Houston game, for example, in the second half, I mean, Wade just made some really tough shots in the second half. I mean, one time he got bumped and made a deep three. So hopefully you don't have to rely on that. We need to get more consistent on the offensive end, and I'm sure we'll put in a lot of work to get better.
Nobody wants to hear this after a loss, right? But the reality of the situation is, and unfortunately, this is where we are. Julius Marble isn't there. He's probably not coming back if he's not here now. All right. But that's a big part of what you did last year. Boots is back, but he's not Boots yet. Okay. That's two parts of your bulk of last year. Dexter Dennis is not here, and nobody's replaced him. So now we're talking about 3/5 of what was your core last year not being around. Right? And Boots is around, but he's getting back to being healthy. It's going to take some time to get his feet under him. And because of that, everybody's focusing on Wade. And the other guys are not built. Like Jace Carter has not become Dexter Dennis yet, neither has Eli Lawrence. And they may, because Anderson Garcia did not become Anderson Garcia until conference play last year. So some of these guys may emerge. They just haven't emerged yet.
Correct. I think confidence is so important in today's game, you know, because you don't have an opportunity to maybe like you mentioned Jace Carter. He's not out there 35 minutes, so he can't play through mistakes. So these guys, their mentality has to be when they come off the bench, they've got to be a spark. It doesn't necessarily have to be from scoring. You know, I think we are pressing, and when you do that, some bad things can happen. There's also some good things. A key win or a key shot at the right time could turn this thing around. The season is obviously not lost. I think we've lost one game, the LSU game, that we probably should have won or definitely should have won. The unique thing is we have them in less than 2 weeks down there, and I don't think there's any team in this league that's going to sweep us, but I'm not sure we're good enough right now to sweep any team like we did several times last year.
Right.
So I think we can make up for the loss at home against LSU by going down there in less than 2 weeks and winning. Obviously, a win against Kentucky on Saturday would be a great boost for us, and then it gets us going on the road to Arkansas. At the same time, we lost 8 games 2 years ago. We could drop several in a row, and then our hole is really dug.
Well, let's play this game real quick, all right? Because it sucks right now. LSU Auburn lost us to start the season, right? I'm blunt sometimes, but let's say you win these next 3, which is a big if. I know that, but just you get Kentucky at home. If you play like you played against Auburn, at least from a rebounding standpoint, you got to get better offensively, and that's going to be a harder game. But just for this conversation, you win that game, you go to Arkansas, that's not a gimme, we know that, but you win that game and you win at LSU. It doesn't erase what has happened, but at least you're like, all right, we're back in this thing, we have a chance now. You start losing some of these. Now you've put yourself in a huge hole.
Absolutely, especially to win the league. But I think right now the coaching staff is probably figuring out a way to get more consistent and get the confidence up. The one thing I like about Buzz's teams is they seem to play better when their back's against the wall. You know, when you count them out, they just don't quit.
Right.
I loved our competitiveness last night. I mean, I thought we gave ourselves a chance to win. When you go on the road, most coaches think, let's shorten the game, make it a 5-minute ball game, and you can beat anybody in 5 minutes. Sometimes it's difficult in 40 minutes. And then playing at Auburn, I've talked to a lot of coaches in the SEC. They seem to think that's the hardest place to play in the league right now, the Auburn, venue, where 20 years ago, it was a joke. They'd have, a tenth of the arena filled up. No one cared about basketball.
Right.
And now it's a tough place to play. So we did some good things last night. They just need to keep working hard and hopefully get the breaks down the stretch.
Do you think, I don't want to say do you think they'll figure it out, but do you think we will see a better offensive attack moving forward? Because I think part of what they're missing, and there's a lot of things that they're missing, but is attacking the rim like they used to. They have not attacked the rim the way, and that would force fouls. That would put them on the line more often. Do you think we'll see more of that?
I hope so. That's what we need. That was our success last year, getting fouled and going to the free throw line and making them. We're still shooting a good rate this year, but not like we were. Last year we were elite at making free throws at clutch times. And that was what made us a good team. People couldn't stop us, so they fouled us. We went to the line and made them. We need more of that. We can't rely, or I don't know of many coaches that say, well, we're going to keep offensive rebounding and make them, keep shooting them till we make them. That's not a good way of winning consistently, because eventually teams are going to beat you to the balls, or at least be competitive and keep you off the boards.
Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Tom Schuberth here in studio. Right now we're taking a break. We'll have a short segment coming back. Association of Former Students time. They want to say thank you for 2023 and the generous support you did all year long. They're an independent 501c3 company supporting Texas A&M and, of course, that amazing Aggie network. And they would not be able to help out great events like Muster across the world, host Green Days throughout the year, support A&M clubs, or provide scholarships and assistance without your help. So thank you so much for helping those of you who have, and those of you who haven't, make sure you reach out to them. They want to spread some love out there by, you should help them by giving a gift to the Association of Former Students. You can renew your Century Club membership if you haven't done so already. You can give a member a gift of membership to another Aggie. They work hard all year long for these events, and they can't do it alone. So hopefully you can help them out. Make a gift today. Visit tx.ag/cheer23. Again, that is tx.ag/cheer23. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. So, basketball, we've been a little critical today. Sorry, guys. We give praise when they deserve it. And by the way, I liked the effort yesterday, but at the end of the day, effort I expected from a Buzz Williams team. These teams always fight hard, and that's why they win a lot of these games. Just got to figure out the offense. Get some easier buckets. You get some easier buckets, you win these games. And that's much easier said than done. But they got to figure that out. So here's the agenda for hour number 3. Ryan Brauninger. He will be with us for a half hour, Recruiting Country. If you've got questions for Bronny, text them in 979-693-1150. Then we'll talk to Hop at 10:35, more basketball. And we'll try to see what Hop's thinking. That and more. It's TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Turnpike Tuberdoors in the background. It is now time for Recruiting Country. Brought to you by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the Bryan College Station area, the original 24-hour ER in South College Station on William D. Fitch, and the full-service hospital in Bryan on Briarcrest. Online at caprockhealthsystem.com. Ryan Brauninger in the house.
Good
Hello,
morning,
Braun.
good morning, good morning.
I told you, I've said it on the air, I've said it off the air, you guys kicked so much, you know what, with your coverage.
Well, I appreciate that.
I was like all over the boards. Like I try not to bother you guys when you're in that world because, I mean, sometimes I can maybe get information for you. Sometimes I can't, right? But I was glued to the thread. It's
pretty interesting when stuff like that starts happening. And there are some of my buddies from in town that will just start texting me over and over. Who's the next one? Who's this one? Who's this one? And it's like, guys, like I am extremely busy right now. Like you got to understand. Inside baseball here for you, right? So that every time A&M has, or especially during the transfer portal era, they bring in transfers. It's hard to get information about what's going to happen once they get on campus, how quick these things could go, how long they could go. So we have to be prepped ahead of time for every one of them. So however many transfer portal kids that they've offered or had brought in on visits or are rumored to have been brought in on visits, we have to prep for every one of those. So that's a lot of writing, right? It's just a lot of prep work because you don't want to be left in the dark or left hanging without anything when a commitment goes public. It's a lot of work that you don't see that will never, ever get used. You know, for instance, we had stuff ready for a Denver Harris commitment. We had stuff ready for Anton Judenkaj, who ended up going to Arkansas. All of those kids that were on that visitor list this last week, we had stuff prepped and ready for. So if you're listening to this and you're one of my buddies that likes to text me when all this commitment stuff's going on, I'm not ignoring you. It's just hard to get back to you.
Catch up.
Yeah, with all that stuff.
I want to ask about Denver for a moment because I thought it was odd initially when I heard his name. And then I was like, it makes sense. They need cornerbacks. And if he's got a short leash. And then they started getting defensive backs. I'm like, they don't really need him. Is that kind of...
Yeah, I think that was once they started landing and hitting on some of the other guys that were coming in, I think it gave them a little bit more leverage then to say, okay, we don't have to take this chance on a guy that's been here and burned some bridges and, been at LSU and burned some bridges. And look, I hope Denver finds a place to play, and I hope Denver figures it out and, reaches his full potential because if he's right, he's an NFL player. No question about that. And but I thought that it was – that you're right. Once the ball got rolling in this direction with all the corners and defensive backs that they landed, then it gave you some – you'd have to mitigate, some taking a chance on a guy.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the guys that they've gotten. The one that I'm really excited about what the defense is going to look like because they lost guys, but they've gained guys, and they've gained guys – who have done things that we need to see more of, getting to the quarterback. Nick Scorton, obviously the first one.
Nick Scorton and Cassius Howell are both, I think, elite get after the quarterback style of players, and Nick Scorton is an every down player. And I haven't watched enough of Cassius Howell other than just the highlight clips on YouTube, but the type of schools that were after him would indicate that there are a lot of big-time college football coaches that think he is a down-to-down impact player, not just a third down rush the passer kind of guy. And I actually think that the addition of Cassius Howell was one of the main reasons that Elijah Alston then decided not to come to A&M and reopen and continue to look for his next spot out of the transfer portal because, it's, again, I don't fault any of these kids for the decisions they make out of the transfer portal. It just depends on what they're looking for. And if you're an older guy that has played a lot of college football already in the Sun Belt, like Elijah Alston had, you don't want to really come to a place where you're going to have to sit, right? Like, this is my last year of college football.
Yeah.
I want to keep playing the number of snaps that I've been playing. And it was just going to be hard to do that at A&M. But that's kind of been the nature of the A&M defensive lines for, into Jimbo's credit since he got here. Jimbo and Elijah and obviously Terry Price played a huge role in those. But that's not how Mike Elko ran his defense either. Like, he always substituted his defensive linemen and keep those bodies running in and out of there so that fourth quarter comes and you can still be making impact plays with your top guys because they're fresher. but also those second and third string guys are you don't have to worry when they're on the field about your defense taking a step back because they've played so much football. And so I just think that maybe Elijah Alston was looking for something a little bit more clear-cut and a little bit more open path to the field.
All right, so they lose him. Are there other names like that in that position, other defensive ends that they could potentially go after?
We'll see. So right now the portal's in a dead period until Friday. So whereas last week the visitors started showing up, I believe, Wednesday, this week it won't be till Friday night, Saturday morning out of the transfer portal. And there will be no 2024 visitors this weekend.
Okay.
So no high school current class visitors.
Just portal guys.
Portals and 2025s, which we'll get into here in a little bit. And it seems like that the page is definitely turning now to some extent, and the focus shifting toward that 2025 class in the state of Texas. And I feel like the coaches and recruiting staff know they have an opportunity to start making real relationships in that class. When you're hired so late in the process, with 2024, you're doing all you can just to get it over the line. And there's still work to do there, obviously, with Terry Bussey. But they probably came in here looking at that 2025 group and eyeing it up and going, okay, there is our chance to make our mark in the high school recruiting game. Whatever we can do with the 24 class, we're going to do. But 25 is where we can really start making our mark as a staff and as a recruiting kind of machine. So I think them beginning to turn their attention toward that is super interesting for Jason and I, because it's always fun to start uncovering a new crop. And I'm really not uncovering. You do this so much, and I've gotten to know some of these kids for a year and a half already. They're in this 25 class, but now they become the focal point of the recruiting. So it's always interesting to see kind of where you kind of mapping out a big board for that class and who falls where and where do the new offers go out, and did they offer this kid because they want him now? They offer him to say, hey, like we're going to keep following you. We want you to come to camp. There's a lot of different layers that go on in this. So it's just, the excitement of starting a new covering a new class. But, for right now, the focus, I think, to get this current roster ready is probably at receiver.
Yeah.
Whether that be through high school in one of these weekends or through the transfer portal. And I still think we've got some Holman Wiggins surprises coming.
All right, so help me understand. Dead period till Friday night, right? Mm-hmm. And then when can they sign until?
Well, there's really no signing day for transfer portals. You just show up and go to class.
Right, but you need to be on campus by if it's –
I think it's probably add drop day.
Right.
So is that 2 weeks after classes start? You have to ask one of the current students sitting in the back. I don't know what that exact date is, but
so there's still time.
And there's not some preset NCAA deadline that says you have to be enrolled by X date. I think it depends on the school and the add drop date of the school.
Okay.
So A&M, the kids come back next week.
Yes.
And then they've got it's probably going to be pushing closer.
So we could be hearing names for a bit
to the end of the month. Sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
would imagine though that Mike Elko would like to get them in as soon as possible to start getting them with Tommy Moffitt and getting them going on their daily schedule, because whether they're 5th or 6th year college guys or early enrollees, which we'll talk about in a minute, you need to get accustomed to your surroundings, knowing where to go. Where am I going to go to get food today?
Yeah.
Well, I need to know where all those places are. You know what I'm saying? So how much time do I have from this class to this class? How long is that walk? How long do I have between classes and when I got to be at the facility? All that stuff plays a role into getting acclimated to a new place, whether you're 23 or 17.
One of my favorite professors ever, probably my favorite professor, Finney Coleman. He left A&M and he's now in New Mexico, but he texted me. He was like, we stay in touch. He's like, talk to me about E.J. Smith. Where does he fit in that running back group? Because we have a very strong group. How do you talk about EJ? Because he's a guy who probably expects to play. He can catch, he can block, he can do a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and was off to a really hot start, I think 2 seasons ago before he got injured, and really curtailed a promising season for him. But who knows if he's healthy? Does he ever end up back at A&M? Because it's just tough to read some of these portal guys. We know EJ's insanely talented. He was on some bad Stanford football teams that really struggled offensively. So knowing that, were you able to see the full scope of his abilities? Let me remind you. I mean, Devon Achane, we all thought was a superstar, potentially the most talented running back this school's ever seen. But now he gets to the NFL, and you're seeing what he's doing in a different offense that's probably a little bit more built to what he's good at.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing him shine to the tune of 7.5 yards a carry in the NFL, right? So you just never know how it changes scenery, utilization, all that kind of stuff is going to play into these kids taking the next step. And, like, yeah, I saw a lot of people really getting after Scooby Williams at linebacker because of his PFF run grade. Well, you'd have no idea about the situation that kid was in on and off the field, mentally, right? He's uber talented. He was a national top 75 kid coming out of high school. So the talent is there. And you just don't know how he was being used and if the kid was as engaged as he needs to be. So, like, we see it all. We've seen it more and so in baseball, right, here at A&M with Schloss and some of these guys they bring in. And you're like, okay, pretty good numbers at the school before, but wasn't maybe, an elite player at the place before. And they come to A&M and they all get better, or at least they have. And so whether that be coaching, the change of scenery, the change of expectation, the change in culture within the program, you just never know what's going to unlock some of these kids' capabilities. And I'll say this too. This group of transfer portal kids that they've got right now is at 18. They're not all going to be impact players. They're not all going to be every down players. Some of them will be depth guys. Some of them may not play at all. Remember how fired up we were when Tony Grimes committed?
Yeah.
Former 5-star coming to A&M. They need corners, right? Didn't play a down. So you just don't know. But what Mike Elko and company are having to do is fill out a roster that is going to physically be similar to everybody else that's at the top of this league. That means the starters have to be insanely talented. That means the depth has to be very, very good too. And I think that's the goal of attacking this portal. Go get talented players at positions of need and let the chips fall where they may.
Yep.
And E.J. Smith's certainly a part of that. When you look at his skill set, it's different than Amari, Le'Veon, and Ruben. It's a different skill set. And I think he is going to be a reliable pass catcher on third. And he's an old head, man. Like, how many times did these running backs last year miss blitz pickups?
That's true. That was a huge problem.
Right. And that's an extremely valuable asset to have in a running back.
And I'm sorry for saying this, but I like Stanford players. And I just like them. I do.
Yeah, I think there's certainly something to be said about kids that have gone to Stanford, gotten degrees from Stanford, or were recruited by Stanford because it says something about their intellect. I think the shine's kind of worn off of them as, because the program's taken a step back.
Last 3 years, yeah.
But, there's certainly something to be said about the intellect level of the kids that are coming from there.
You mentioned it a moment ago, but can we just go through the DBs? Because, that was a huge.
Nick might have to pop that list back up.
Yeah, pop the list up out there. And by the way, what is the latest, if there is a latest, with Brandon Johnson?
I don't know where they're at on Brandon Johnson. We felt pretty good about it ending the weekend. He's a nickel from Duke, and he is a true nickel. So, and I believe that's what he's even labeled as on the Duke football roster from last year, was a nickelback. And you would think that nobody knows more about the kid and how he would fit into what A&M wants to do defensively than Mike Elko. And so I think it would just be coming down to, again, like, what does that position look like now currently with the guys they've got committed, and then what is Brandon Johnson looking for in his next stop? Because, look, I don't know who's going to play in the secondary. And as Billy said on the radio show earlier this week, like, you might roll into game one next year and your starting corners might be Will Lee and B.J. Mays. You know what? That also might be Javon Thomas and Bravion Rogers, because just because these guys have some struggles as true freshmen does not mean they're not talented players.
Right.
In fact, they're very talented kids. Go look at the schools that you beat out for both of those guys. So they're still, like, what they had to do was go bring in some real talent so that you had options and that the cream could rise to the top in spring and fall practice. So when you look at what they've done at corner, when you look at what they've done at safety, you feel good about whatever comes out of the wash there.
Yep.
is going to have been really pushed in practice, and they will have performed well against what we think is going to be a pretty talented offense.
I'm looking at it right there. Trey Jones from Central Michigan, Ricky Wright from Vanderbilt.
And Trey Jones is here already. Will Lee is here already. Ricky Wright is going to be one that's got to graduate this spring from Vanderbilt.
Maybe, yeah.
And he's a big dude.
Is he?
He's like 6'4", 210, 220 pounds. So, like, who knows how he's going to impact the game. And, you know, is he a true safety? Is he a nickel safety where he's playing in the box more? So I think he gives you a lot of positional versatility. But, yeah, Jaden Hill played a lot of football at Florida. That was a kid that the Gator fan base was kind of upset to see leave, and they liked what he did for them. Donovan Saunders, immensely athletic, like crazy track stuff in high school, and then ends up at Cal Poly and was a standout there and got his hands on a lot of footballs last season. Marcus Ratcliffe, I got the chance to talk to him on the phone, and he's going to play more of a field safety and a young guy. So this isn't like – there are different layers to this too when you look at how old some of these guys are. Marcus Ratcliffe has got 3 years of eligibility left.
Yep.
So you essentially just signed a class of 2023 safety that has a year of college football under his belt. He played a bunch of football last year. So it would have been like you brought him in with Torian York and Ruben Owens and Chase Basantes in that class, but he got to go somewhere and play a bunch where he didn't have to come here and just sit.
Move-in day. Yesterday, a bunch of dudes moved in, early enrollees. Yes, some of the transfers as well.
Yeah, and, it's for a lot of these guys, not a lot of them, but for a fair amount of them, it's the first time I've ever gotten to lay eyes on them because whether they're transfers, I've never seen them. But even some of the guys like Jordan Lockhart, I've just seen him on tape and seen him on Twitter clips and stuff like that. But I got to see him in person and talk to him and talk to Tristan Jernigan and Ashton Funk and Trey Jones and Will Lee. There was a bunch of them out there yesterday getting their stuff moved in. It was tough to stand out there yesterday. I was sitting there going, would I rather have stood out in yesterday's weather or stand out there for the pool party like we do when it's 130?
I think I'd take the pool party weather.
Would you?
Yeah.
It was brutal yesterday. So much so that it ruined an interview because the wind was so loud. And then some of the kids' teeth were chattering while I'm trying to talk to them. It was blustery, to say the least. But stayed out there till about lunchtime and got a few interviews. And it's just, for a lot of these kids and a lot of the parents, and it's an emotional day, like especially if they're newcomers, if they're early enrollees out of high school. And I talked to Ashton Funk. He's like, this is a day that I've dreamed about since I was 4 years old, and it's here. And so saying bye to mom and dad, and there was a really cool video from Jordan Lockhart's dad of him getting to the airport and walking into the airport in California before he flew to Texas. And so it's an emotional day for these families and these kids. So there's going to be some days where they're going to wake up homesick and wanting to go back and see their friends and family, but it's why they get them in here a week early so they can kind of get all that out of their system before the real stuff starts.
If you got some questions for Bronny, you can send them in, 979-693-1150. I got something I'll come back with when we do come back, and then a couple questions for you. More with Bronny here on Recruiting Country on TexAgs Radio. Dalton loves to make fun of me.
He mills around.
Hey, David Nuño. Hey, David Nuño. Hey.
And that's another one. Between Dalton and Olin, they can mill around with the best of them.
Let me see what's going on over there.
Yeah, oh yeah. Olin's a big, I don't know if it's FOMO or he's just bored, so he'll wedge his way into some conversations around the office.
You probably know this about me. I'm the opposite. I'm Harry Houdini. I try to escape when you guys don't see me.
Yeah, and you know what? I really shouldn't be making observations like that because then I start sounding like somebody else that sits in this chair and talks on this radio show, and I don't want to do that.
Well, that's basically him. You just did him without doing him.
I know.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David
Attitude
Gardner
reflect leadership, Captain.
Rollo Insurance Studio. Recruiting Country brought to you by Caprock Health System. One thing you brought up about Bravion Rogers and others, this year, right? When you talk about, where they can grow, let's not forget different coaching staff, too, can bring different things out of players.
Yeah, obviously. Absolutely. And I think that's like they took the kids from Florida. You're going to tell me that Jay Bateman doesn't think that those kids can go to maybe a different level than they were at Florida here? You really think that a guy that is getting a chance to be the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M is going to take a chance on a guy that he doesn't really think can play here? Come on. And far be it from me, we have zero background on him as a player evaluator, a talent evaluator, as a play caller. So I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. And I know that he has forgotten more about football than I know. So why would I be critical of that at all?
Here's one that I don't know if you were hinting or you're just doing deductive reasoning, but I'm going to read it. It says, a question for Bronny. What wide receivers are possible candidates that we may be interested in? And the only reason I said I think you're just doing deductive reasoning. You get a new wide receivers coach. He's got connections. He's got relationships. So you wouldn't be surprised if somebody else pops up.
Yeah, whether it be out of the portal or the high school ranks. And, there was a kid that kind of famously in the recruiting world reclassified from the class of 25 to the class of 24 and committed to Alabama as a receiver from Saraland, Alabama. His name's Ryan Williams. I would imagine that he's had at least a conversation or two with Holman Wiggins. He remains unsigned and obviously now one of the top players in the class of 2024. Does A&M get the ball rolling on a visit here? Can they even pull that off? Because if they can, that would classify as big news. I mean, one of the top players in the country at a position where you need talented players. And signing Terry Bussey is no less important than something like that because Terry Bussey impacts two positions, I believe, once he gets to campus. Potentially three if you want to count punt returner.
Right.
I don't know that Terry would be that guy immediately because Moose has done it so much, but Terry could certainly be an impact player in special teams as well in that manner. But signing Terry Bussey is as important as adding a new wide receiver or a new DB in the high school class or even an offensive tackle who they are going to make a run at a kid named Robert Corden out of Collierville, Tennessee, who'd been committed to Duke for a long, long time but did not sign. We are anticipating him taking an official visit, not this weekend, but the following weekend to Texas A&M. 6'6", 6'7", 305 pounds with all-area lacrosse background. So to tell you something about his athletic ability and his kind of ability to be fleet of foot at that size. So there's certainly a lot to like there in terms of him as a prospect.
And Bussey, anything new there?
No, going to take visits, like we said, to Georgia and USC, but nothing's changed. We still feel like A&M's in a pretty good spot. And until we start hearing otherwise from our sources, we're going to kind of stay in that boat. And, again, I said it, I believe, last week, but signing Dalen Evans and Miles Davis was a big deal. They were always going to sign Miles, but Dalen kind of went through that spell where he didn't know what he was going to do, whether it be flip or even sign early. And not only did you keep him from flipping, but you got him to sign early with A&M. And I think that's going to go a long way to help them lock down Terry because Terry and Dalen have gotten so close there in East Texas.
So Bussey, is his expectation, wherever I go, I want to play both sides of the ball?
I don't know. You have to ask Terry that, I guess, face-to-face or on the phone. And I know that he's obviously open to it because he did it at the Under Armour game last week. And when you have the high school career that he had with production on both sides, I would think that he – and you see it more and more happening more and more now. Obviously, Travis Hunter is the poster boy for that. And it's about managing snaps, but he's that kind of talent. Like, he certainly could do it.
Let's talk a little bit about the 24s that are, well, I guess we already did the 24s still in Target. What about the 25s that are coming maybe in a week, is it?
This weekend.
This weekend.
There's going to be a mixture of 25s or a sprinkling of 25s coming in probably like 3 of the next 4 weekends. They're into early February, and Jason's been updating some of those on the site. But they're off to a pretty good start. And there are a lot of kids in that 2025 class across the state of Texas that have had an affinity for Texas A&M regardless of who the head coach is. They grew up liking the school. A lot of them have come to games so often that the atmosphere, the 12th man has left an indelible impression on them, so much so that even through a coaching change, A&M has remained a major player for them. I'm talking about guys like Landon Rink, who is a sensationally talented defensive lineman out of Cy-Fair, whose dad played for Texas, but has been very open to going to other places. And I think A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma, if I had to guess, and I don't want to put words in Landon's mouth, but if I had to guess, those 3 would be right there near the top. I think A&M's going to have a great shot with DJ Sanders out of Belleville, who is a freak of a defensive tackle prospect. You just don't see guys that size move that nimbly around a football field. And I don't care what size school he's playing at, and Belleville's a 4A school, but you go to any of the big 6As in Houston and Dallas and not find that guy. And I think A&M's in a good spot there. So, we've talked to prospects at a bunch of different positions that are planning on making trips into town. So we'll have more on that on the site throughout the week.
For you, what was this weekend like compared to other, there was that hot streak in the summer, or I forget how many it was, but it was back, and they didn't end up getting all those guys. But obviously the 22 class was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
For the years you've covered, what was this transfer portal weekend, I call it Transfer Palooza, like compared to some of the other things you've covered?
It was as busy and crazy of a 5-day window as I've ever had. And that's including the 22 class, but if you remember, there were just certain spurts there. And they were month-long spurts or a couple of week-long spurts, nothing where it was 14 or 13 commits in 5 days.
Right.
That was the craziest thing. I'll tell you, so it's pretty funny that 2 of the wildest stretches of just being involved in this job in my career, 2 of the wildest times have happened in the last couple of months with this run in the portal, but also before that, the 4-hour window of the Mark Stoops era was crazy. My phone went berserk during that.
I'm trying to find, Nick actually wrote out these the stretches. You said at the bottom of the rundown? Nick, is that right? I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I can read them for you.
Yeah, Ronnie doesn't have his headphones on, but go ahead and read it out there.
Yeah, so
Nick.
in 2022, they had 8 commitments from June 20th to August 20th. That's 58 days. That included Bryce Anderson and Theo Melanostrom. 2020, they had 10 commits from June 2nd to July 27th, 2019. That's a 55-day run. That included Moose and Haynes King. 6 commits in the month of June in the 2019 class included Kenyon Green, Zach Calzada, Layden Robinson. National Signing Day 2018, which is, I guess, kind of a different circumstance. But Jimbo, that was his first recruiting class. He landed 8 commits on that day and 9 if you go back 2 days earlier where he added Leon O'Neal. So just some of those runs are what I found.
Yep, good stuff.
Thank you, Nick. That was very informative.
It just felt like every few seconds my phone was dinging. And I can only imagine what your phone was like when you're getting intel coming in right before you had to.
Intel, and again, like I said, you're prepping everything. So there were some guys that we went into the weekend like, hey, I probably don't have to prep that, or it doesn't need to be a priority. And then you're sitting there scrambling at 11 o'clock at night trying to get stuff written so that, hey, you just get information that it's going one direction, and you don't know how much time you've got because the kid may just say, all right, I'm ready. It's going public.
Yep.
And we have to have it ready.
Bronny, I appreciate you, sir.
All right, see you.
Thank you. Milliken Reserve Time, farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes. They got trails. They got wide-open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature, and they've done that by treading lightly, I should say, on the land that Milliken Reserve has been created on. They're dedicated to the conservation of a healthy community, respect for that native landscape and wildlife. They've got 30 miles of trails. They've got homes all over the place. They've got 2,600 acres of open space that includes an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape. You can go walk there. You got the equestrian pass. You've got the creeks, the ponds. You got the gathering areas. And it's a place that families can cherish generation after generation, because you know what? It's going to look exactly the same as you move in today. Much later, it's going to look very much the same. They got different types of neighborhoods out there. You got the creek on 10-plus acre wooded estates. You got the hollow in a private gated community, and you got the meadows that are responsive to that natural surrounding. Learn more at millikenreserve.com. Again, that website, millikenreserve.com. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is now time for Pounding the Rock. We've got Hop here. Tap had to take the day off, so Hop's going to handle all the duties when we talk about this basketball team. Hop, I'll start things off with this. I don't like being super negative. It drains me. Mm-hmm. I'm having a hard time being optimistic about this basketball team right now, other than what I keep saying. Buzz is a master of his ingredients, and he'll figure it out at some point. But that's what I got right now. That's all I got right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, and I did my article this morning, I started with the good news. The good news is that they got back to the formula. I mean, they had like 11 more offensive rebounds than Auburn. They did those kind of things. Second chance points, I think it was like 10 to, and they only allowed 1 second chance point to a very tall, long Auburn team with the second team SEC post guy out there. That was the positive. The negative is clearly as they struggle offensively, they're losing confidence, and you can see it. And you can see it in not only the turnovers, but the type of turnovers. I mean, some turnovers, it's like, how possibly could that? How could you throw a one-handed cross-court pass into the first row? Or why would you attempt that? Why are you throwing lobs inbounds under your basket to a big man in the corner where there's a pretty good chance he's going to have a hard time catching that ball? And at that point, it was 54-52 with 3+ minutes to go.
You had a chance, yeah.
That game was still in doubt. And after that, it's like the momentum just really ran out. So it's, again, I think it all goes back to a lack of confidence on offense, and they're just they're not executing on offense. It's not, we talk about, they're not shooting well. Well, they're not shooting well because they're not getting quality shots.
And they're not getting easy buckets in transition. I mean, I don't even remember when they got their first transition bucket, but it wasn't in the first half.
Well, and they had opportunities.
Yep.
And they couldn't finish, and that's what happened some in the LSU game. Garcia had that open dunk in transition and missed it. Last night they had several opportunities where they had a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, and it's just, for whatever reason, bad pass, missed the layup, whatever. It struggled. I think in fast break points, they were outscored fast break 14-3. So that tells you they scored 3 fast break points. So
a team that can't shoot well has to do well in the fast break points. They have to.
When the opportunities are there for easy buckets, you got to get the easy buckets.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I've struggled with this team for a number of years. I feel like it takes heroic efforts to have good offense. And I go back to the Quentin Jackson run. I go back to Wade's run last year. I could look at this year and some of those moments where Wade just carries the team on his back. We were talking about the Houston game, how they abandoned the offense, but he just started doing amazing things. That is not a sustainable model. That's where I struggle.
Yeah, I mean, at least from my view, this year is different than last. There's similarities, but they're different. Last year, there was enough. There were enough options.
Yep.
Boots was playing well. Wade obviously was out of his mind last year. Dexter Dennis was a go-to guy. And then both, Marble had some post-up game.
Yeah, he did.
You really have no post-up game now. And then Coleman was good on the backside. Coleman did some nice things last night, but you got to get him the ball away from the basket at the elbow and let him drive in. He's not a guy that's going to post up. And so when you don't have that low post presence to feed the post, the defense never has to collapse, and they're still sitting there in the face of Wade Taylor and Tyrese Radford.
Have you noticed, and I'm saying this before baseball season, but the last few years, when there's expectations, things, and it's for all sports, like football, like, hey, here we go, new offensive coordinator, like these, and then it's just hard to reach those expectations. And they're not, I don't think I expected a national championship out of this team, and there's still a lot to play for, but I expected more right now.
Yeah, and you're right, and I can't explain the 120-year history of A&M sports, but it does seem that way. And I think with basketball, something always seems to happen before the season. A few years ago, it was the COVID thing. Yes, everybody had to deal with COVID, but we know with the Buzz Williams team, probably the most valuable period of time is June to October.
Yep.
And when you did nothing, and then the team building and all that stuff went away. Then now you have the unexpected loss of Julius Marble. Tyrese was hurt for a bit, and it just seems that it does kind of seem snake bit to some degree.
One thing that I do want to be, I don't know, excited about, but I'm happy about is they did go back to being a Buzz Williams type of performance, right? Like, it was a one-off what happened at LSU. It feels like, at least when it comes to rebounding and whatnot, like, at least they played their brand of basketball for the most part without hitting shots.
Yeah. Well, and I keep going back to, obviously, on the message boards, which where I linger late at night after a game. A lot of people, this is the worst offense. This is horrible. I'm not disagreeing, but A&M had the lead at number 16 Auburn,
48-46.
48-46, a team that had an average margin of victory against Power 5 teams of 23 points. You're winning that game with 8 minutes. Now, there's no consolation prize, but there is something to say, hey, look, they're not that far off. If they can fine-tune some things in the offense, do some things to take some pressure off of Wade and Tyrese, easier said than done.
Sure.
But that's at least, I think, after the LSU game, you're wondering, nothing's working here. Is this start of a fall off? No, they've at least regained their identity. Now they need to slightly change that identity and say, well, we've got to be able to run an offense in the half court and create open shots.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The turnovers are a problem for a team that likes to attack. Well, last year they liked to attack. I haven't seen as much of it. Attack the rim. You can't have these many turnovers when you shoot poorly, and but they're turning the ball over a lot.
Well, in SEC play, they're very good in non-conference. But what's happening, and I think and Buzz has said this all the time at press conferences, once you get into conference,
they know what you're doing.
They know what you're doing.
Yep.
And so the other teams are starting to capitalize that. And then, like I said, they're pressing so much on offense, and they're trying to do things, and they're trying to thread the needle on passes. They're trying to do things, and that gets you into trouble eventually.
So if you want to be optimistic for a moment, and not necessarily the brand of basketball, but like you win Kentucky, didn't fix everything at all. But now you're like, all right, now that trip to Arkansas, we can do this, guys. You lose that one to Kentucky. Now that Arkansas game is like, this is a must-win.
Yeah, I was telling folks, when I'm looking at these next 3 games, Kentucky at home, number 6 in the country, at LSU, at Arkansas, both teams, by their standards, are struggling, but historically places where we've struggled over the years. If you can get out of there at 2-3, you can at least say, I can see a path. I think we're getting to the point to where, earlier in non-conference, we're talking about net 15, net 19. We're talking about a 4 seed or 5 seed. That's fading. Right now, I think the job is, let's get back to the NCAA tournament and see if we can fix things in the end and get on the run. I think you can still do that at 2-3.
The last couple of years, the Kentucky games have been tight. Those are winnable games. They have been, at least.
Yeah, they've actually shared the conference title several years ago when they beat Kentucky at home, and they do. A&M typically plays well at home against big opponents. You can go back to. I'm not sure we want to go back to the days of Melvin, but they would. Oklahoma State would come in, we'd play well against a ranked Oklahoma State team, throughout. So I'm expecting, and I think the students will be back. I expect, that first Saturday before school starts, big student attendance. And with Kentucky, it could be pretty close to a full arena. So that's going to bring the electricity up. I think it's. I'm going to expect them to play a good game.
The LSU game on the road, which is the third game, right? It goes from Kentucky, Arkansas,
and LSU.
Then LSU.
Yes.
That is a must-win, right? It's especially considering what has already happened and losing to LSU, you got to win that game.
Well, I will say you've got to win one of those two, either at LSU or at Arkansas. Like I said, to me, if you and then win the Kentucky game, if you can get out of these go through the first 5 and be 2-3, I think you're at least saying okay, because you've got some games then that are, if you play well, or winnable games. So, but yeah, it's going to be pretty tough. They go in and get slapped around by LSU again. That's not going to be a good sign.
How much of the issues offensively are Wade and Boots both are like, we've got to do it all. That pressure of feeling like they've got to perform at this high level, and also understanding defenses are there to stop what Wade does.
Yeah, I think that's everything. And if you look, what defenses are starting to do is the second A&M gets across that half-court line, they are aggressively guarding Wade and Tyrese. And any time that we bring that ball screen up top, they're double teaming either Wade or Tyrese. They're not staying with the screener. They're going, and so it suffocates them. And so then when they're trying to figure things out, and you're dribbling and you look up and there's 8 seconds on the shot clock, and then you're scrambling just to get a shot up, and that's where you're getting the bad shots. Is that they're just having a hard time getting into an offensive set, moving the ball, and then finding the open man. They're dribbling around, trying to double teamed. They look up 6 seconds, and they've got to either shoot a wild three or go to the hole and try to create something.
Is there someone on the roster you think that can step up and be – so like last year I pointed Dexter Dennis stepping up and being huge. I think Anderson Garcia did not really become a factor until SEC play last year. He was okay, but then he really took a huge step. When you look at the roster – is there someone that can step up and be like, all right, this guy can be a major contributor that we're going to look at the way we looked at this player and that player?
Offensively, I think that's going to be the struggle. I mean, you look at I think Jace Carter has done some really good things on the defensive end. He's a good rebounder, which is things that they're looking for, but he's really struggled on the offensive end, and he can't create off the dribble. That's one of the issues. You only have 2 players you can count on to create off the dribble.
Yeah.
Even off the bench, Manny struggles with that. Jace isn't that kind of player. Hefner has gotten to where he can't take it to the hole, but he will take it to the lane and do a pull-up jumper. He had a nice start to the game last night. Is he a guy that you look at and say, has he proven himself that I think he could be that number 2 or 3 option? We'll have to see. But right now, I don't see a clear answer to your question in regard to who else are they going to look for.
For those of us who have not paid attention to Kentucky, number 6 in the country, obviously, some of that is brand recognition, who they are. But how have they looked this year?
Interesting. They actually did not play a very difficult non-conference schedule. Now, they did play North Carolina, and they beat North Carolina, and that's kind of gotten their points. But they have that 7-footer Bradshaw who came online in December, and he has made a world of difference for them. Ever since that Bradshaw has come on board, they've been an elite team. And so this is going to be a tough matchup for them because they've got long bigs that can move. We've got 6'7", 6'8" bigs. And that makes it really tough on Henry Coleman and Anderson Garcia.
Yeah. All right, Hop. Thanks very much, buddy.
All right, appreciate
you. That's Hop here on Pounding the Rock. When we come back around the SEC next on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Say it ain't so. Last segment of the show. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I laughed. Like that was impressive, Nick. Did you like it?
No, I actually booed back here, but
you booed?
I did.
You didn't hiss?
Yeah, no, I booed for that. It was that bad.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question, Nick. You answer it, all right?
All right.
What does Austin Boast and Troy Claunch have in common with Ryan Targach?
Well, they all play baseball at Texas A&M.
Oh, that's it.
That's all hit dingers.
Yeah, that's another one.
Oh, their number. That's right. Number 12.
Tell me more, buddy, because this is something that Jim Schlossnagle brought to A&M.
Yeah.
You know, I don't believe they ever did it before. Maybe they did. But I know he re-brought it back.
Yeah.
For the number 12 for baseball.
I think Coach Schlossnagle just put a bigger emphasis on it as it being a team leader, as someone who, you know, all the young guys can look up to.
A&M.
Embodies A&M. Perfect. And A&M Baseball Twitter put out a really good little 90-second clip of Coach Schloss addressing the team and letting Targach know that he got the number 12. And what he says in that is basically he asked every player, pretty much every coach around the program and people who know the guys. And he said basically universally the answer was Ryan Targach embodies A&M. So he'll be wearing number 12, and he'll be a key part in that lineup, probably somewhere in the middle, a key masher if he can kind of bounce back after at last season where he probably didn't hit to his standards. If he's back to his standards and maybe even better than that, I think that's going to be a huge piece for that A&M offense.
Hey, let's do around the SEC some news for you. One of my favorites, Cuban-American James Coley, no longer with Texas A&M. Looks like he's going to be heading to South Carolina. 247 Sports is reporting that. So it looks like Coach Coley will be heading out to South Carolina to join them. Other SEC news for you all to think about. Auburn running back Brian Batty takes his name out of the portal. He's going to go back to Auburn. He gained 227 yards on the ground, scored 1 for the Tigers last season. Obviously, he had to split time with Jarquez Hunter and Damari Alston, but we will see how that plays out for him. Hopefully not too well against Texas A&M. What else do we got for you? Oh, Mason Smith, the defensive lineman for LSU, declaring for the NFL draft. That came out yesterday. Texas A&M former defensive lineman Isaiah Rakes. Nick, do you know where he's going?
Yeah, he committed to USC.
Correct. Going to USC.
Interesting commit video.
I didn't see it.
Hey, you probably shouldn't.
Why? It'll upset me?
No, just it's interesting.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
I'll go check it out. All right, gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much for listening and watching here on the program. Tomorrow on the show, Esteban McGee. We'll have Steven. We'll have A.T., Aaron Torres on the program. We'll have Logan Lee on the program. And the knuckleheads known as the Fan Show guys. So we will have all those on the program tomorrow. My thanks to all of our great guests here on TexAgs Radio. Obviously, OB, the top of every show. John Harris, he was great breaking down Georgia, Michigan. He was more on the Michigan side than I was. Coach Pat Henry came here in studio and enjoyed talking with him. Tom Schuberth, we had to talk some hoops with him and Hop later on in the program. And, of course, Ryan Brauninger joined us here on the show. A lot of transfer portal stuff to get into, plus the 25s visiting this weekend, and kind of a dead period for the 24s. So thank you to Bronny for breaking it all down. That is going to do it here on TexAgs Radio on a Wednesday. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We will see you mañana.